We are officially down to our final set here this weekend in the SCC playoffs of phase number 1, North American Finals, starting right here and right now. It's the Sturdy Artisans versus the Herculean Hoofs. The Sturdy Artisans off a big win just a moment ago against the Winter Dogs, and this is a team that got it done all phase long in the North American SCC, and now have to win 3 straight against a very formidable opponent to be the number 1 finisher out of North America. Taco is with me one final time for the day to crown ourselves a winner here in North America. And Taco, I think what I said just now kind of leans into the Sturdy Artisans team. They were number 1 seed all year long. Again, we've talked about the DQ, I guess, in their first set of the weekend down to the losers bracket. Probably deserved to be in the finals anyway, so I'm glad they made it.
There is something very real, though, about tournament edge, Dolson, and when you're dealing with a team like the Herculean Hoofs, these are players that I would probably expect more so to pop off whenever the actual tournament is on the line, and for the SCC playoffs at first place position, pretty steep jump in the prize pool as well here.
Yeah, it's been a quick weekend, all weekend long. Herculean Hooves go into this one with that 1 win advantage. Sturdy Artisans are going to have to win 3, not straight, but they're going to have to win 3 against the Herculean Hooves. Herculean Hooves will be able to get it done in 2, and that's not been an easy task, taking games off this Sturdy Artisans team, and I think our previous set shows us why, Taco, because this roster that the Sturdy Artisans have brought to the forefront really started to turn on towards the end of that set, despite some early game stumbles against the Winter Dogs, and absolutely have come to play. I think anywhere you look on this roster, someone that the Herculean Hooves have to be concerned about.
And that's the main thing to keep in mind here as well for the Sturdy Artisans, is that they can't really afford to make some of those early game mistakes that we saw going up against in that last set, because if Sturdy Artisans give an advantage to a team like the Herculean Hooves, I do not see them letting go of that lead, Dolson. And when you factor in just the level of talent that we're dealing with between both of these rosters, it's a lot to handle.
It absolutely is, and I think we've kind of had differing sets between the Sturdy differing phases, between the Sturdy Artisans and the Herculean Hooves. The Herculean Hooves, a team that we knew had plenty of talent, just took a little bit of time to get that talent going. Meerkat, Mast, Baskin, Snoopy, and Gino. I think we could say very similar things about this team that we say about the Sturdy Artisans. You look top to bottom at this squad, it's someone that you've got to be concerned about, not only in-game, but in picks and bans as well.
I mean, at some given point, all of these players have had their opportunity from the Herculean Hooves in the actual pro league itself. So for this team to now be in the SCC up against the likes of the Sturdy Artisans, granted, there is obviously some former pro league talent there as well. But it's another thing entirely, I feel like, Dolson, when the entire team has had that level of experience, because it does provide a slight edge in terms of decision making.
Yep. I think Baskin out of the mid lane will have a lot of focus on him throughout this set as well. Has absolutely taken to this tournament so well. Someone you always keep your eyes on anyway, but especially when he's playing the way he is this weekend. Mast, I think, has started to turn it up a little bit as well. They've shown a flexibility in picks and bans. The Mercury, something that we'll have to look out for, I think, on both sides, because what fun both of these two teams are bringing. And I don't want to delay it any longer, Taco. Why would we? Picks and bans for game number 1 between the Herculean Hooves and the Sturdy Artisans start right here, right now. Grand Finals of North America. Herculean Hooves in the first pick spot, Sturdy Artisans in that second pick spot. We talked about it briefly in our previous set. When you're facing a team like you are, on either side, Herculean Hooves, Sturdy Artisans, are you able to focus on specific player god bans, or are you focused more on the gameplay style bans?
For Artisans, I think it relies a little bit more on gameplay style, but for the Hoofs, I do feel as though they can actually look at just individual bans, and they're already taking note of that, immediately taking out the E-set, which kind of plays into the whole gameplay style, because that's a big objective fighting capability that E-set's able to provide. We know that Sino's good with that god as well. I believe he has a 100% win rate, in fact, on that E-set, so it just makes more sense than ever to just not give him the opportunity. Even if you think that you can play against it, why take the chance when you already have that one-up game advantage?
Agreed.
Herculean Hooves definitely looking to try and put themselves into that 2-0 favoritism.
Yeah, absolutely, and then the emoji to follow up. Very strong ban there. Sturdy Artisans, I think, follow your train of thought, take away the Giannis, the Raijin. Mercury, a little bit of a specific ban there, but definitely can still fall into the gameplay style category. Herculean Hoofs, what a way to start off their draft. They want to give their mid laner Baskin something that he's proven all weekend long and all career long, that he can play at the highest level. Merlin's going to be your first pick here in the finals.
And Chiron as the immediate response. Chiron does have great range that can be awesome when trying to tackle that Merlin from a distance, because you don't necessarily want to get into Merlin's range. He does have a lot of shred potential. And the Wukong as well definitely funnels even more into that dive style of play that we've been seeing time and time again here from these North American teams, Dolson. Something to keep an eye out for, though, that jungle pick for the Sturdy Artisans, potential for a Daji, maybe even a set to come into play here.
Yep.
That's something that we haven't really seen too much set as of late, but ever since the shell nerf, I do think that there is some viability there, but it seems as though Sino has his head catered a different direction, as the Neja is going to be his jungle of choice.
Strong pick that we saw from Sino already so far in this set, so a chance for a repeat performance here for Sino out of the jungle for the Sturdy Artisans. Very strong in that regard, especially when you're flanked by a Chiron and a Sun Wukong. On the flip side, though, I don't think the Herculean Hoofs are going to be scoffing at what they've got. Merlin, Sobek, King Arthur, plenty of frontline control and the ability to give Baskin the space to operate and put out huge damage numbers down the stretch. Gilgamesh, Ratatoskr, the final two bans for the Sturdy Artisans here, Taco. Does Ratatoskr make some sense in that final ban slot?
It's just a classic pick from Maz. That is a god that he was an absolute menace with, even during his time in the Smite Pro League itself. So Daji does make an appearance, just not on the side that I was expecting. I had my eyes on that Daji for the Artisans because she is so good at isolating and really focusing out a Merlin, but same could be said for this Daji into the likes of the Artisans. Daji has a lot of counterplay potential against that Neja specifically, but could struggle up against the likes of Stewart with that Chiron. Could potentially be Pagon, though, one more time, running that Chiron mid, but instead it's going to be the Tiamat, because she's made it all the way down to the final pick, Dolson.
I'm throwing my hands up because I've somehow forgotten Tiamat's still around. I'm so used to Tiamat being gone in the first wave of bans that I've forgotten that's a very available and real pick that's now rearing her head in the second game of the finals here between the Herculean Hoofs and the Sturdy Artisans. Is there enough setup? Is there enough build-up around this Tiamat to give that space to jump in, to operate, to do damage?
There's definitely a ton of early game power here from this Artisans lineup, and that's a bit intimidating, especially when you factor in that the Hoofs, they're going to need some ramp-up time to really get these gods up and running, Dolson, for those team fight objective plays that I'm expecting to see.
Game number 2 of the North American SCC final starts right now with your casters, J-Mac and Mifflin.
Thank you, Dolson and Taco. Mifflin, Tiamat made it to 10th pick and was given to the number 1 seeded team coming into here. Maybe a bit of an oversight?
Maybe, or maybe letting Sino get his Naja is a bit of an oversight, or Stewart getting one of the best hunters in the league right now. There's plenty of things that we could talk about for the Sturdy Artisans, but I guess it is hard to evade the Tiamat question. She's incredibly good. I don't know how she made it all the way to the 10th pick, but I'm expecting great things from Pagon.
Yeah, we'll see how he gets his chance to finally pilot this goddess. I think it's the first time the North American scene has seen her get some play this weekend, at least. We know we saw a little bit out of the EU on day number 1, but ever since then, it's pretty much been a strict 100% ban across the board for her.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's just so hard to deal with that lane pressure that she can bring come late game. The ability to just split the map. It's like being able to spawn 1 lane's worth of Oni Fury minions whenever you feel like, essentially. It's so hard to deal with once you get to the Fire Giant dance phase of the game. Gold Fury dance. If you're dancing ever, you kind of don't want a Tiamat on the other team.
Yeah, it's just delaying the inevitable more than anything onto Meerkat. Going back onto King Arthur, which just feels like the same song as we talk about all the time with it. Sino going in aggressively, though, with the sash on the basket. Not going to get the beads out of him early on, as you wouldn't expect him to probably burn those super early. But Meerkat getting this King Arthur yet again. I feel like that's pretty much all we've ever seen Meerkat on this weekend.
Yeah, King Arthur is an incredibly strong pick. It's surprising that the EU SCC doesn't put nearly as much emphasis as the SPL or the North American SCC does on this pick, but it clearly came at a cost, didn't it, J-Mac? Sure, you got King Arthur, but taking a peek at this Sturdy Artisans draft, man, they got away with a lot.
Now it's going to be a plug-in onto Stewart. He's going to get flung into the back, but No real follow-up from there. Dive bomb in from Snoopy. It's going to be a training exercise and a following masterful shot onto Snoopy. Freeze gets the beads from old Snoopy, but now Ionic is in trouble. The basic doesn't connect, and that's going to allow for Ionic to make his way out, but I can't say the same for Mass. He's stuck in between Pigon and Sino. Will he be able to get out is the question. A little bit of extra movement speed might save his life. Baskin gonna get a nice little pull. No, the beads are gonna keep him. And the ring toss after. We will be able to trade it out though. As the last little bits of dots coming from the shot, Baskin able to at least trade out 1 for 1.
Man, I was so ready to get back into North America, and this is exactly why. Constant action across the map, almost without reason, one might argue. Sino using the pre-beads to make sure he's able to pick up first blood for his team. Phenomenal start. Ionic able to defend his purple buff up against Gino, but maybe Stewart in a little bit of trouble. The giddy up going to get him right on out of there. First blood goes the way of the sturdy Artisans, but Herculean Hoofs able to get one back. Baskin picking up a kill and putting himself solidly 1 level in the lead.
Yeah, and I think I have probably all the members of Herculean Who's giving Baskin an early kill. And not necessarily your best option, but on this Merlin that he's performed so well on all weekend long, might be one of your better options earlier on. Blinking from Gino, though. Here's what we love about North America. We just get to see this all game long. Dive bomb in, follow up basic. This time, Snoopy will close the deal on that one and be able to pick up a kill. Relentless one, though, now that he's used his Ox form, he barely gets up into that ultimate. I didn't think he was making it there for a moment. The bleed, not quite enough damage to drop him down yet.
Gotta think, had Mass not fallen for first blood, he likely would have been level 5 for that engagement and likely would have been able to pick up the kill on a Relentless one. So that's the knock-on effects of Sino going deep for that first blood as Gino gets another pluck, forces another pair of beads. He is on an absolute tear.
Oh, and Stewart dives in aggressively. Snoopy low and mana. No beads available to him. Then the Centaurus comes out, and then the Windfire Wheels will pick up the support. Gino gonna land to his death on the bottom end of it and give a double kill over to Stewart.
Just an insane pace to this one so far, J-Mac. They brought me on as a caster so I could do analysis work. I have not had an opportunity to do so. 4 minutes in this game, 5 kills, but the disparity is not there just yet. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Sturdy Artisans are up 1,000 gold, but experience is largely equalized.
I don't have any chickens, okay? Nor do I have the eggs to hatch said chickens, so don't worry about me counting anything yet.
All right, yeah. I was speaking, you know, it's a colloquialism. I was using, look, it won't happen again, J-Mac. Only the facts from here on out from me.
Look, just because I'm from Texas does not mean I have chickens, man. It's okay. I forgive you, though. You're just done already. We're at that point of the day. You're already done with it.
All right, I'm gonna go try really hard to reroute us into the core of this match here, because considering the pace of this game so far, I'd expect the Herculean Hooves to get a little bit more aggressive in the early game. They don't want to have to deal with Pagon on this Tiamat come late. We've already talked about how great her ability is to split up the map, so that means that the Herculean Hooves have to bring a little bit more so to the first phase of this match, trying to make sure they go into that mid to late game phase with an advantage.
Snoopy, be careful. Don't be too greedy with those beads. You might need them here in a second. Dashing for Stewart. Gonna get a nice ricochet off, but Ionic's got the damage from the shards of ice to take him down. Another death on the Hunter of the Hoofs.
And now it's up to Gino to try and defend out this lane, but maybe takes a bit too aggressive of pathing in. Ionic almost gets the wall up in time to pick up that kill. Had he got it, maybe at least force out the ultimate here from the Sobek. Gino able to maintain all his cooldowns going forward. And I like it. I like the pace of this game so far as Meerkat forces Relentless one up into the somersault cloud.
Almost soloed by Meerkat into the solo lane, but Relentless will make it up there just in time. We'll maybe hold that thought for a moment. Nice little stun, but Relentless one has the safety of the tower to make sure Meerkat doesn't continue that dive any further. And yeah, the pacing of this game has just been, let's fight. I see them, I want to fight them. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter where. Back into the dual lane that we go for our next bit. Mass will dive in, gets 1,000 cuts in the final auto after. We'll take down Stewart for another kill on the board for the Hooves.
Man, I need just a second to collect myself, to get another grasp on what's happening so far this match. Mast taking a peek over towards Ionic, who is getting dove here, but meanwhile amid a bit of a 1v1 Pagon up against Baskin.
Yeah, Baskin is getting the worst end of this trade as that little demon is still chasing him down. Ionic lost his beads earlier on, so he didn't have it for the powwow afterward. It looked like he probably got plucked back in by Gino again. And just all these beads across the board, it doesn't matter because there's so much CC, Mifflin. Like, it feels like every chance that we look over at somebody, someone's losing a pair of beads.
Someone's getting stunned out. Maybe someone's getting stunned out elsewhere. Frozen, giddy up, kicked back, knocked up, Windfire wheels. CC across the board seems to be the name of the game. And there have been a lot of beads pickups in response, but not many still available. Right now, Sturdy Artisans have a distinct advantage insofar as Relic cooldown as Snoopy. No jump available, slowed out. Stewart looking for the damage.
Well, can Stewart get shots? The question doesn't find that last one, so Snoopy will live to see another day. But man, Stewart has been relentless on this Chiron in this lane. It doesn't feel like he's giving Snoopy even an inch to breathe.
No, not at all. The Sturdy Artisans' name of the game has always been early game aggression, it feels like to me, and they are living up to that reputation right now. But maybe 7.5 minutes into this game, we're getting a little bit of a breather. I expect to see the next true engagement start up around one of these Gold Furies already spawned up on the left-hand side, and with how much pressure we've seen from both teams' junglers over towards this long lane, gotta imagine whichever one finds that opening, finds that pick, is gonna immediately move in towards the neutral objective.
Well, both supports are looking for the Hunters, but I don't know if they realize that they looked at each other basically just through the wall there. I think there was a ward on both ends for them to notice that. But let's get into the solo. We see Meerkat go for some heavy aggression onto Relentless One. We'll get a good bit of poke onto him, but they're not too worried about it for the moment. Relentless One does have the safety of the tower and maybe the safety of Sino, who's making a rotation over to this right-hand side. Stun on the Meerkat. They get a little bit with the Master's Will. We'll save it for the time being, but Sino just needs that Windfire Wheel. Ultra misses it off the mark, off the Somersault Cloud. Goes Relentless One, the Bluestone Tick's not enough to take him down in return, so Sino finally brings down Meerkat.
Man, Relentless One gotta be worried about how that one pans out. Nearly loses his life because of Sino's uncharacteristic whiff of the Windfire Wheels. You can start counting them now, chat. Put one on the board, and we might end this game, even if it's 50 minutes from now, with just one on the board. That is how consistent Sino is normally on this pick. Meerkat, though, unfortunately, still not quite able to get anything back.
Yeah, still having a rough time there. It feels that Meerkat's always kind of been the target of this aggression into the solo lane. Do you like that being the call? You know, keep Meerkat down, or do you maybe kind of shift your focus elsewhere across the map?
It feels like to me Sino's playing a more opportunistic gank pathing style. It's okay, well, Meerkat's playing aggressive right now. He just uses ultimate, doesn't have the CC immunity or the dash available, so might as well move on over. But for the most part, we've been seeing the majority of jungle aggression rooted inside the long lane. It's been towards Snoopy or it's been towards Stewart, wherever they can, trying to work their way forward. And it's kind of reflected in the supports pathings this game. Both supports have been largely relegated towards playing inside this long lane, just trying to make sure that that pressure that's been there isn't getting to these Hunters.
Over to the Totem, Meerkat goes, try and get a little bit of poke on it. Relentless will stop him there. We wait for the next fight to break out. This has probably been one of the longer points of low action that we've seen so far in this 10-minute game of North American Smite. I say that, but we'll just see constant fights over into the solo lane. That's just how that one is going to go. But we do see a rotation that direction. Scorpion has already been taken. It looks like they might be making an aggressive route towards Meerkat yet again. Sino cutting low. Pagon cutting to the midpoint. Stunned by Relentless One. Another sash in. Windfire Wheels will connect this time as he gets the set up forward on the back end. And the Tornado on the bottom end means that Pagon will get the secured kill on the Meerkat.
Gino gets his dash caught out slightly here, leaves him exposed to the four-man core of the Sturdy Artisans. Looking for the dive, no dash, no ultimate available. That's a rest-in-peace situation. Sobek gonna join Meerkat in the Shadow Realm. So what are the Herculean Hoofs gonna try and do with 4 people on the right that start up the Gold Fury, and it's burning fast.
Centaurus is still available for Stewart. He has potential to steal this. He actually keeps him away from it. Just like that, the lone hunter for Sturdy Artisans pushes the Hoofs off that Gold Fury that should have so rightfully been theirs.
It should have been, and now Baskin and Mass find themselves in aggressive positioning. They don't know Relentless One is there. They don't know how strong Pagon is. That's one for the mid laner, and now it's up to Baskin to get out alive.
Now Baskin's gonna have to make a full retreat because he gets cut off by Stewart on the back end. The training exercises and one more basic will secure the deal. 9 kills now on the board for the Artisans. 3 of them on both the mid lane and on the Hunter. Stewart and Pagon off to a very early killing spree.
They are. Sturdy Artisans got such a commanding lead already. 12 minutes into this game, we're talking about 4,000, nearly 5,000 gold up, and that's with no neutral objectives having gone down besides the Pyromancer at this point. Gotta think that the Artisans are looking to leverage this lead by grouping up around the Gold Fury very soon. The only caveat being they don't really have the greatest secure potential. Their assassin doesn't have an ultimate that can hit the objective. Pagon on this Tiamat doesn't really have the best burst either. Maybe the best confirmation they have on the side of the Artisans is that Shards of Ice from Ionic, but that could even possibly be the best confirmation in the game right now.
Yeah, it's kind of wild seeing so little, really so little burn. Well, not so little burn. There is a Merlin on the map here, but so little objectives secure out of 10 characters picked up for the matchup. However, Pagon 3-0, well, that's going to be a blink in from Gino. He's going to pull one back, but Pagon goes right into four-legged form, able to get a blast back as well. Puts Baskin down to half. The Tornado comes out and forces out the Powwow from the jungler. Mass up into the air. Is only going to pull Ionic back in, and Ionic does not seem too concerned about it, but a rotation from Snoopy gets cut off by Stewart as he tries to make a cheeky sneak over into the mid lane.
Gino and Mass expending their ultimates there. That is a lot of teamfight resources lost for nothing gained so far. Sturdy Artisans realizing that start to work their way forward ever so slightly, seeing if maybe they can catch someone out. Sino showing himself on the left-hand side. Looks like he might have some trouble coming his way.
Yep, I did not see him getting out of that in any way, shape, or form. Mass will be able to get the pick up onto that one. Relentless One has to use the Ox form to get away from the two still stuck in the mid lane. Meanwhile, the rest of the team starts posturing up near the Gold Fury. That'll be the first major objective these teams likely start looking towards and fighting over. We saw one attempt at it earlier, but it got cut off very quickly. We do see the Beast from Tiamat still chasing down one. Gold Fury started up by the Hoofs. It's going to be a 4v5. They're still missing Sino for about another 10 seconds, but they're playing very passively around this one. Gino takes one step too far forward, and that Pluck gets beads out, and he gets bursted immediately. Ricochet goes through, gets a little bit of damage, but now they're down one of their frontliners. Up into the cloud goes Relentless One. Centaur's shots are good to put Snoopy low. Masterful shot will put him in the red health, and that sets up the Gold Fury for Sturdy Artisans.
You know, I had an opportunity to speak with iRapper back in Season 7. He said, look, in the late game or even the mid game or at any point in a team fight, if I pluck somebody and they have beads up, I just die. That's how Sobek plays. And here in Season 8, that still stands true. We see the pluck come through onto Ionic, who immediately beads it and freezes him for his trouble. Gino was not allowed to play after that point, as he was immediately sent to the Shadow Realm, and Sturdy Artisans in a 4 versus 5 walk away with a kill and the Gold Fury.
Look at this level lead in the mid lane, too. Level 15 on Pagon, close to that 16 where Baskin is struggling. Only sitting at the level 14, or I say struggling. Some of his teammates aren't even that lucky. Even Meerkat is having trouble getting some experience over into that solo lane with how much fighting has been going down and how much fighting across the map has been forcing him kind of back into his tower.
It has been a lot of fighting, 15 kills and as many minutes in the game so far, but with Gold Fury dead, with Pyromancer dead, have to imagine that the pace of this one slows down ever so slightly, at least until we get a couple more levels under everyone's belt, around that 18-19 minute mark. That's that special Fire Giant time where teams start to look towards the biggest of neutral objectives. But take a peek at this right-hand side of the map. Somehow Meerkat sneaks past 3 members of the Sturdy Artisans who were looking for him. They just find the tower and nothing else.
And Meerkat just pulled a Harry Houdini on them and just disappeared right in front of their eyes. They all thought they had their sights set and all of a sudden just disappeared. Well, now he's back right into the front line of it. Goes on to Sino. Forces the purification beads off of the jungler. So that'll put Sino back, but now Gino caught in the middle with the freeze. Tornado comes out from the Tiamat as Pagon throws out one ability just to push everybody away. Baskin takes a little bit of damage from the cudgel, but not too much to have to worry about for the time.
Sino's beads expended. Meerkat uses his blink, but with the roundabout pathing to get back to defend that tier 2, it drops down to about half HP in that time. Now, Sturdy Artisans isolated in the jungle. Blink forward, Sino plucked.
But an immediate egg is going to mute out most of the damage that came his way. Now Meerkat is getting caught in the middle, or I'm sorry, I thought that was Meerkat in the middle. That's Gino up into the Windfire Wheels. He'll land, but a big stun out of Meerkat saved his life, only for a short while though. Tornado comes out from Pagon. Mass finds Sino on the backside, and still the chase continues up into the Powwow. Goes Mass looking for pull anybody in. He's only going to grab Pagon off of it, but Pagon is so tanky in that 4-legged form. And unfortunately for Meerkat, he's not going to be making it out of here anytime soon as Pagon throws out the knockup and picks him up at the tail end of it. Now 3 versus 4 with that arcane damage being thrown out by Baskin. That's going to call for a slight retreat here for the Artisans.
MVP for that fight has got to be Relentless One. That entire time Sino was being chased out by Meerkat and Gino, Relentless One zoned off the 3 other members of the Herculean Hoofs. Sino does eventually fall to that dive, but at the cost of both Meerkat and Gino, rather than having a fight go much better for the Hoofs. So I really do like this Sun Wukong play.
Ooh, that's a bit of a dangerous one there. Mask will go in on Deonic and be able to pick up the kill with the help of Mask. Baskin super low. Stewart unable to confirm the kill. All that started because Pagon walked up very aggressively to those back Harpy camps to steal those when he had so little mana to his name to begin with.
Yeah, just does not have the ability to stick around in this engagement. Eonic has to pay for the sins of Pagon on this one, and I'm sure he's happy to do so. You don't want that 5-0-3 Tiamat to start falling. The bounty is incredibly high. Being level 17, the cooldown on his respawn is also going to be incredibly high. Pyromancer has respawn. Primal Fury going to be coming up in just about a minute. So that could be the next point of interest on the map for both of these teams. And the lead that was starting to accumulate itself just 4 minutes ago was around 4,000, is now closer to 5,000 in favor of the Sturdy Artisans. We're starting to see this really start to separate these 2 teams. This next objective team fight could spell disaster or a switch. The Herculean Hoofs, if they're able to win out cleanly, can completely close out this gap.
You know, for them, what is it going to take to be able to kind of switch that fight to their advantage? What's that one key factor that they need? Well, maybe hold that thought as the pluck goes out onto Sino. He loses about half of his health, gets yanked back in, but he's got the Windfire wheels to get out of the Suns that drop down. Now Mass is the one in trouble. He is stuck in the middle of all of them. Centaur's not going to find him. A Pagon will bring him up to 6 kills in a row. Snoopy getting a low wall.
Nice
He's going to
wall.
cut off the path yet again, but I think it blocks the shot for the Master's will. So Snoopy lives for just a little while longer until the cudgel comes raining down. That's 2 more kills on the board for the Artisans, and Gino now caught out all alone. 4 players turn their sights towards them. Pagon gets stunned out. Eonic there to act as the frontline wall for him, but Pagon, I don't think he cares about that. I don't think he needs it necessarily, because he's going to go in right on top of Basket. Relentless One will get 1 down into the leap. Will go Pagon and put 7 on the board for him. Unstoppable on the Tiamat.
This Tiamat is an absolute menace on the map. Now it's up to not Gino to make the miraculous play. Has to go for the steal, but it seems like he may have been spotted out already. Pagon looking around, seeing if maybe he can stop this from happening, but that's a huge loss of burn on the objective.
Ooh, that's going to be the demon thrown out just to slow down Gino. He's going to get leapt on, and that will be the end of his life. Eonic getting the credit for that one. Fire Giant going to be taken here by Sturdy Artisans. No steal potential on the board for Herculean Hoofs. So the first major objective of the map, the Fire Giant, will go the way of the Red Squad.
Man, the pace of this game is so fast, it almost feels like a waste of time for me to do a recap of the state of the match. Just 30 seconds ago, we were talking about 5,000 gold in the lead and potentially a comeback mechanic for the Herculean Hoofs. Yeah, we're closer to 10,000. We have Fire Giant on 5 members. Sturdy Artisans still have so many towers to work through as well. This gold lead is going to get a lot worse before it gets better for the Herculean Hoofs. Primal Fury still available. 3 tier 2 towers and a tier 1 in mid still standing. This gold, oh man, this is not the worst of it yet.
I mean, just when the Hoofs thought they had reached the top of the staircase and it was all going to be even playing ground from here, Sturdy Artisans hit him with the trap door and throw him down to another staircase that they've got to climb back up. 9,000 gold at 20 minutes, almost 500 gold a minute. I mean, this seems like almost an insurmountable pace for the Sturdy Artisans.
It seems like it, but there still is the potential to fight in. The Herculean Hoofs have phenomenal base defense off the back of this Merlin pick. Mass as well with the Powwow is going to be very safe in burning away these beads. Gino, not nearly as safe when he decides to burn beads. The last couple times we've seen him go for the pluck, it has cost him his life. Imagine he's going to play a much more reactive role in this next engagement, likely just going to try and make sure that Snoopy and Baskin are able to free cast throughout the team fight, but I don't like their ability to defend on a tier 2. Maybe throw up a soft defense, really dig in your heels on the Phoenix.
Relentless One possibly could have stopped Snoopy's back there if he had seen him, but unfortunately not able to get that cudgel that direction or get the vision onto him. So for now, Sturdy Artisans will push up the tier 2 tower of the long lane. All tier 2 towers are the only ones that remain for the moment. That one's going to come crashing down. 1,500 more gold pushes them over 10K in the lead now. And still looking to group up now for the Phoenix fight, potentially. Who's going to be the first one to initiate? It's going to be Relentless one right into the back. Snoopy already forced away from the beads, and with no
Good
beads,
Lord.
that's a freezy kill for Sino. Windfire wheels to make sure to secure the deal. Asunder does come out onto Relentless one, but it's on the decoy, not the target you probably wanted to throw that one on, as Stewart picks up Meerkat, lets high and dry in the back. Now it's 3 versus 5 to defend against the throne room. Sino missing the sash, Ionic, and the whole squad basically still full health. Gino gonna push forward onto the Sobek. The tornado comes through, does get the knock up in the end. Mask goes
50%.
up onto the Powell out. Looking for anybody gonna grab Ionic at it. Titan is still low though. It's down to about a quarter health. They're gonna have to close this out quick if they want to stop this Titan, but it looks like Sturdy Artisans will be the ones to end this one. 22.5 minutes, they close out game 2.
Herculean Hoofs coming to the set with a 1-game advantage, and it is immediately met with a very swift win from the Sturdy Artisans, the first seed here in the North American SCC, making it look incredibly easy. That pace of that game, I cannot believe. And there's no way they're able to maintain that throughout this entire set. That was almost too much kills.
Yeah, that just felt like a bloodbath. I think that's really the only way that we could put that, is they just came out and they woke up, they chose violence. That was it. They just woke up, chose violence, decided we're just going to get every kill possible on the board, make sure everybody can get a kill. But we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a quick break here, and then we're going to throw it over to the desk right after to break down game 2.
She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
Sturdy Artisans keep the momentum going on this championship Sunday and take game number 2 over the Herculean Hoofs. Simplifies yet again. We are down to a best of 3 between these two teams over here in North America, and it is the number 1 seed coming up from the losers bracket that has a bit more momentum at their backs right now. Taco is going to help me in breaking down game number 2 here. In Taco, this is a big game because Tiamat comes through with the 10th pick, and we're like, I forgot she was available because she's banned out so often. And Pagan shows up on that pick in a big way.
Certainly not a god you would anticipate to be left for the very last pickings. It's weird because we literally turned Tiamat into that kid for dodgeball that was always last to get chosen.
Yeah, right.
back in elementary school. But
were you ever that person, Taco?
Yes, multiple times.
Were you?
I was very unathletic. Like,
back in the day, right?
Extremely unathletic. Like I wanted to be athletic, man, but like between being 3'2" for my entire life, and just.
I was the opposite, where I was athletic, but just didn't have a good personality, so nobody wanted me on their team because, like, them and they had to hang out with me more.
No way.
Just didn't want to hang out with me anymore. So you do want on your team, though, Taco. And this one is Pagan. 10.5 KDA and 21,000 damage. You imagine at this point, this is something the Herculean Hoofs now retrospectively look back at how this game went, and you're banning Tiamat from this point on.
It probably is significantly easier not having to actually deal with all of the team fight presence that Tiamat introduces. The god has great mitigations, definitely tanky, difficult to deal with, decent amount of mobility, and just tons of follow-up and setup potential. Tiamat just kind of does it all, and that's not even factoring in the split push minions potential that could be a heavy factor. I mean, we didn't really see it come to light in this game in particular. It seemed as though the Artisans were a lot more concerned about just having Pagan be one of those core team fighting members, but really liked what we saw from Sino. Ionic had some beautiful walls throughout this game as well to really negate a lot of Gino's initiations because Gino was finding Plux. It's just whether or not the follow-up was possible that was getting so limited by Ionic thanks to this Amir.
Yeah, Ionic did, 3.6k damage, but that's not really where you look. It's the on-field impact that Ionic was able to have. Not often you see a King Arthur get kind of completely mitigated like we did there in game number 2, but Meerkat was effectively not on the map more than he was. And so this is now the scary trend for the Herculean Hoofs, where we've talked plenty about why the Sturdy Artisans had to come through the losers bracket. But now with some of that momentum building, the winner's advantage is effectively nullified. You have to imagine the odds tilt back towards the Sturdy Artisans after game 2.
They have been a commanding team all throughout this NA SCC, Dulcin, and it seems to be even more evident exactly why they're at the top here with how controlling they were in game number 1 up against the likes of the Herculean Hoofs. It just seemed as though there was too much individual play from the Herculean Hoofs, not enough actual teamwork. So if they're able to like revamp and try to bring things more together, they might have a better chance here.
Wonder if that's something you can address in picks and bans. That'll start right now for game number 2. Maybe the Herculean Hoofs get their hooves underneath them. I've made that already. I've said that like 3 times this week. I'm a broken record with horrible puns, I guess. So that one's now retired.
Hey, you and me both, man. Don't
Medusa.
feel bad about
I said Medusa oblongata like one too many times, talking about the brain. I'm surprised I was able to make that one work. Part of me is proud that I made Medusa oblongata work, but retired because there's only so many scenarios where that one actually makes any sort of sense.
Can you say it one more time? Because third time's the charm.
Medusa oblongata. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm probably saying it wrong. I wonder if that's one of those things I say it 3 times in a row.
Somebody in the medical field just constantly clenching.
Right. Their medulla oblongata hurts in the back of their brain now, hearing me say it wrong so many times. One thing that's not going to change here, Taco, bans for the Sturdy Artisans here. Giannis, Raijin, Mercury absolutely makes some sense. Sino catching a couple of bans, though. Unchanged in the E-set, but Naja joins the ban column here. Herculean Hoofs don't want to deal with it.
Just incredibly annoying Sash setup, and Sino has just been so aggressive with that Naja, playing off of the solo lane very heavily throughout every single one of the Artisan sets. So it makes sense to just strip away an immediate early game pressure pick like that because so many of the Artisan games, they tend to end around that 20-minute mark for a reason, Dulcin. And it's because they just come out with sheer force in that early to mid game. They look to take control control of whatever map pressure they can scrape together, and it oftentimes tends to fall into that solo lane aspect.
How about this from the Gilgamesh? We won't see him in the solo lane here as the Sun Wukong will take that role for the Herculean Hoofs. 77% pick ban rate for the Gilgamesh. 4 games is how many he's been picked. That converts itself into that pick rate. Has only won 1 of those 4 games, but still sees an above 66% on more than 2/3, more than 3/4 of the time we're seeing some sort of pick ban priority on this Gilgamesh. Is he in a spot where 25% doesn't necessarily do his potential impact justice? The teams keep going to this pick because there is that potential behind him.
Win-loss percentages can definitely be deceiving in terms of actually indicating how influential a god pick actually is throughout a match. I think Gilgamesh is a prime example of that. Sun Wukong right up there with him. Even though you're not necessarily finding the team wins, it's about how difficult the process is for your opposition to actually prevail. And the main standout factor for me with this Gilgamesh is that there is a little bit of a blind factor, could make team fights a little bit more difficult for the Artisans, because again, one of the main issues that I saw from the Herculean Hoofs in game 1 is that it was a lot of individual identity.
Right.
There was never really that semblance of we are working as one unit in comparison to what we saw from the Artisans. So Gilgamesh kind of forces you to play as a team. Fafnir forces you to play as a team, and I like what the Herculean Hoofs are doing here in terms of adaptations. It's whether or not they can actually pull off the execution now that I want to see from them.
Right, the Fafnir is going to force the Chiron and the Soul to be a part of that big team fight presence. So the Herculean Hoofs making some changes as we figured they would in the pick ban phase to give themselves a better chance up against the sturdy Artisans. Yamoja, though, first pick for the sturdy Artisans, a ban that was now left by the wayside because of some of the changes in priority. Yamoja, Merlin, Kamazat, Cupid, Nem, Taco, that feels pretty good here for the sturdy Artisans in game 3.
Nemesis feels great when you're facing off against Gilgamesh, Sun Wukong, and that Fafnir. It was a solid front line up until you see that Nemesis come into play. And not only that, but the Fields of Love, the Cripple, on top of that Nemesis is going to be incredibly difficult to escape from.
Sturdy Artisans, they have the momentum. 1-1. Game number 3 will break the tie.
Well, with that, I mean, so now we go a second game with another god that had 100% ban rate. This time, Yamoja makes it through. Thankfully, after Pagon's performance on the Tiamat, Herculean Hoofs were smart enough to make sure that one goes away. J-Mac and Mifflin here onto the cast forward. Sturdy Artisans with a dominant game 2. You think they'll be able to pull it back here in the game 3 with this draft? I'm kind of liking what Hoofs have got here.
I really do like this Herculean Hoofs draft, but the Sturdy Artisans have the capacity with their picks to win out just in the early game, just straight up. If Pagon hits the ground running, if Relentless One can get the better end of Meerkat, the pressure could really start to mount, especially considering Yamoja and Cupid is a Season 7 OG kill lane. But my concern for this Sturdy Artisans draft is, where is their front line? Who's going to be tanking things up? I mean, Yamoja, I suppose, is going to be pretty tanky, but is she really a traditional frontliner? Is Relentless One going to be that standard engage that you expect out of a solo laner? This is a very squishy composition that the Sturdy Artisans have. Once we get to the late game phase, if they come in from even, this might be one of the highest execution compositions I've ever seen.
Yeah, but if we're looking at the similar pacing to last game, I don't think Artisans are probably too worried about the late game. As you can already see, it's kicking off early in the duo lane. Heart Bomb gets the beads out of Snoopy, and a beads out of Ionic as well, as the Sunder Hammer comes out of Gino, forcing Ionic to use one of his relics early on.
Better think that Snoopy's in some trouble, though. Nice start ability from Yamoja, but Stewart, bud! It was there for so long! You can aim around it, unfortunately. Drifts his way straight in there and loses his chance at finding the kill.
Yeah, kind of Tokyo drifted the wrong way there as he steers clear straight into the wall. That his own teammate put there, by the way. That wasn't the enemy's Riptide. That was your own teammate's Riptide who said, hey, I'm going to put this here, catch them, make sure not to walk. Oh, you already walked into it. Well, let's try that again later.
Yeah, fortunately, Snoopy's bead's still going to be down for another 2 minutes, so, you know, one opportunity lost, but still plenty at the door here as Snoopy left alone inside the lane. A little bit of trouble to separate, though. Should be able to get him out.
Yeah, to separate's pretty good ability, I'd say. Gets you out of danger. It takes a little bit to get there, but once you get into that incorporeal form, you're immune to damage, immune to CC, and you can go through player-made walls as well. So it's a nice little ability to have. And Ionic is probably wishing that he had it right now, as Gino He's going to get stunned out by the detonation of the Heart Bomb. Massive would pick up Relentless One on the right-hand side for first blood. It's not quite over yet with the action left. Ionic will get a little bit of sustain back up thanks to the healing and the shield, though.
Man, it's so hard to keep track of the map when legitimately every single bit of it is pertinent information right now. I mean, they are fighting every single spot that they can, and Ionic at 1/10 HP doesn't care, still starting to work his way forward, with Snoopy still not having beads for the next minute. One stun is all it could take, but it's Gino finding it first.
Well, there is the dash in by Stewart. They'll give a little extra movement speed to Ionic. Gino almost takes him down. Another Riptide comes through. Stewart is body blocking autos for his support at this point, because that's just how low they've gotten to. Have neither of them picked up their healing yet? Like, they're both sitting so low. Stewart could just throw a heart down for him, but neither of them have healed each other yet.
No, I don't believe so. While we are watching this nail-botting battle inside the duo lane, that still continues. Ionic barely able to work his way out of there. That's a stun onto Gino, and now Sino's in.
Yeah, Sino makes the rotation over, and the slice and dice will be enough to take him down. Now they'll chase out Snoopy. No beads available. He's going to get a little bit of healing out with that Radiance from the first ability. Sino still chasing, needs one more basic, and that'll do it. Double kill for the jungler of Artisans.
Yeah, as I was saying, as all that action is happening in the duo lane, Baskin was actually able to strip away the red buff from Pagon, and now looking for the 1v1 inside the tower. First shot whiffs, second shot hits, and third will not deal enough damage even if it does connect, and it does not. Pagon staying alive by the skin of his teeth, but it still costs him his beads.
Yeah, both of them actually using their beads onto that one, so neither mid laner will have it. Leaves them very susceptible for a gank, won by either this Gilgamesh or by the Nemesis. They decide to make that rotation over by the two junglers of these teams. 2-1 read scoreboard, but you wouldn't believe there's only that few kills, as much action as we've seen so far. Speaking of junglers, here comes Mask. Gonna go for the drop kick, but well off the mark for it, so Pagon will live to see another day.
Gotta wonder what the plan even is there. Had he connected the dropkick, I mean, it just sends him into his own tower. It just feels like these guys are throwing wild haymakers and hoping that they connect with the chin. Herculean Hoofs again establishing aggressive positioning in the jungle. Red buff going to be spawning relatively soon. I thought for a second maybe we'd see Maz try and gank Pagon on his way back in a lane, but instead he's looking at Sino.
And Sino will just dash right past them, right into the safety of his tower. Meanwhile, Mask may notice right that rotation up to the red buff, picked up his little trinket for hitting level 5, and it ends up being a tier 1 mask out of it. I imagine he'll probably end up selling that one later down the road. But now he's got the timer for the red buff. He'll go straight to it, drop kicks it against the wall. Ionic is here to try and save that one. Not sure if he's able to steal it away or not, but that doesn't matter because they're diving on a Baskin in the mid lane. And that'll be enough to take him down. Now Mask, who was late to the rotation, he managed to team up with Gino to pick up one. Sino's waiting for him on the back end. No, Ionic will pick him up with the River's Rebuke. Gino is still on full retreat as well in that Draconic Forum. No leap available, slowed by the Slice and Dice. Riptide pushes Sino a little bit closer, but is right into the Stellarverse Supernova of Snoopy. Riptide gonna push Gino back just a little bit further. That
Poor
breath
Gino.
AoE is just enough, but I mean, how do you escape a Yamoja when you don't have your leap?
I mean, walking into the Riptide twice, probably not the first step to it. Gino getting caught out this time around, and Sino is on a tear on this Nemesis pick. 3-0-2 is the jungler of the Sturdy Artisans. 100% kill participation. Already 5 kills for the team. 5 minutes into the game. 7 kills total across the board, but still gold is not that separated experience. A little bit more so, telling a different story. 1,000 in favor of the Sturdy Artisans, but as of right now, the Herculean Hoofs are doing a great job of mitigating loss.
Relentless One has to use his ultimate. Smash puts a little bit of pressure into the solo lane. Didn't even take the moment to realize that this might be the first game all weekend that Meerkat has not played King Arthur. This time piloting that Sun Wukong.
Yeah, and so far it's been treating him relatively well. Hasn't fallen just yet, but has fallen behind inside the lane. About a half-level lead in favor of Relentless One. On this Camazot's, got to imagine he's going to try and rotate out as soon as possible. Looks like Meerkat going for the tried and true Season 7 classic build for Sun Wukong Soul Leader. Going to take a little bit to stack up as Sino forced to retreat there.
Yeah, the ice rains down, and that'll be a quick retreat from them, making sure that they don't try and close in on the mid laner through that cutoff point at least. Ionic gonna rotate over and spot it out and steal it, and that's it. Moonblast just steals the Scorpion away from him.
Yeah, this time Scorpion is stolen away Nice play from Ionic, able to pick that one up. But meanwhile, on the left-hand side, Stewart has been getting the better end of this engagement the entire match, and that does not change now. Snoopy, though, with the Disapparate, is very easily able to avoid the Fields of Love. Stewart expending that cooldown, and really nothing gained from it. Snoopy maintains his defensive relic as well as his ultimate.
Yeah. Not much gain, not much loss there. Yeah, you lose out on the ultimate timer, but at this point, what else is Stewart really using it for? Maybe clear a wave at most on that one. Now, Relentless One's got 3 with his name on it. And, never mind. That's just going to be the end. He leaps away, and everybody just backs off.
It's so hard to shut down a Camazotz. Even if he does not have his leap available, he can still remove himself from the playfield with Bat Out of Hell. But Mast, undeterred, going to start his rotation back in. Got to think he's just going to ult on out.
Yep, it's going to be the Hero's Leap, and immediately the Bat Out of Hell for Relentless One to get right back to the safety of the tower. That'll send him all the way back to the fountain, most likely, unless he stops his back. He's kind of trying to bait out a little bit. You can see a couple of pings to maybe make a high rotation for him. But he's going to sit comfortably inside of his tower for the moment being, as Gino takes a little bit of poke into the mid lane. Ionic just keeps putting out those bubble bounces and those moon blasts to keep Gino at bay.
This is a much slower pace than we saw in Game 2. Was technically the first game of the set, but Herculean Hoofs coming with a 1-game advantage makes it Game 2. This time around, it is a much more calculated, slower pace. I'd expect the Sturdy Artisans to want to try and up that a little bit, because still concerned about their ability to have a front line come late game. It's an incredibly squishy composition, and do my eyes deceive me? J-Mac, did Peg on DC? Yes, he does. Got a little bit of a pause here.
Yeah, we did see a little bit of a bump onto that one, so Peng will take a moment to get himself back into it. We'll take a moment to kind of talk about the state of what we've seen so far here. Like you're saying, a lot slower pace. Does this benefit the Hoofs as the game goes longer, kind of running that slower ball for this game?
I think it really does. It's not so much that the Herculean Hoofs have a composition that is better in the late game or kind of even geared towards the late game. It's more so that the Sturdy Artisans have a composition that is incredibly squishy. It's going to be very high execution come late game. So that means that they're going to have to play much more perfectly, I suppose, is the best way to put it, whereas you can just kind of play standard on the side of the Herculean Hoofs. So I think the longer this one goes out, the less execution we're going to need to see from the Hoofs themselves.
Now we're going to get right back into the action now that Pagon has made his way back in. When you see a Charon's coin finished up, kind of that standard, this has kind of become now the second item to replace the Rod of Tahuti, what used to be in that slot now. I don't recall there being too many butts to the Charon's coin in recent time, but it seems that mid laners are just really favoring this early item.
Yeah, just a nice little stat stick, as well as its decent gold cost. It doesn't cost too much, and generally it's a great way to slot in a little bit of a percent penetration going forward. Pagon going to be able to utilize that additional survivability and utility from the movement speed on this Merlin, as Sino blinking forward finds the ultimate onto Gino, but doesn't get much.
Yeah, gets drop kicked against the wall and wins a Shamash inside of the River's Rebuke. Gino going to get tossed around a little bit, but Sino's going to get caught in the middle of 3. Into the back goes Relentless One, looking for Mass. Bat Out of Hell needs one more tick to get, and he will find it to trade out Jungler for Jungler. And luckily, he's got Neonic on the back end for a nice Riptide. Disapparate gets out of the Fields of Love for Stewart, and now Snoopy wants to be the one to turn it aggressive. Needs a couple more basics or just one more to take down Stewart. And finally turns the tides in the duo lane.
Yeah, surprised to see Stewart willing to keep throwing Fields at Love at Snoopy when he has Disapparate up. It just straight up doesn't work. I mean, that's as simple as I can break it down. He is slow immune. He's just going to walk on out of it every single time and immediately able to turn that one around. Now, looking for a red buff invade are the Herculean Hoofs. It's cost Gino a fair bit of his HP bar here, but he's able to leap over, rejoin with Baskin, and walk on out safely.
Yeah, he'll back over at the Oracle Pit, which those are set to respawn in just a moment as well. But Herculean Hoofs kind of wrangling this game back for themselves a little bit. They're holding on to their pace. Just down, not even really, I don't even think they're really down in experience. Pretty much even across the board or ahead, aside from solo lane. The rest of the way through, yeah, you can see minor experience difference. In fact, they'll get a little bit here for that Pyromancer. And about 900 gold there for the Artisans. So still, fairly even game at this point. 500 experience in gold is basically nothing in 11 minutes.
Yeah, I'd call it dead even. We're waiting for this gold fear to really find some separation in this match, and this might be the catalyst that causes it. Ionic forced to use the Riptides to escape, but not enough to get him away from Baskin.
Now, Baskin's got the snipes on that Chiron. There's many a mages he's learned how to hit those kinds of shots with. And Chiron, as the hunter this time around, no exception. Those nice long-range shots from them. That sets up the Gold Fury. The Mask and Snoopy have been duoing by themselves. Stewart is in the area, but Baskin's going to zone him away. Herculean Hoofs take the Gold Fury. Gino able to get himself out of danger for now. Relentless One makes a long rotation to the mid lane as well.
He does, and does not find much, except for a little bit of damage on a Baskin that is returned immediately in spades. Baskin dropped down to about 50% HP, but with nothing left on the map to fight over, with both Pyromancer and Gold Fury down, means that really, that's just a clean win for the Herculean Hooves here. The gold gap has not increased, as it was not the sturdy Artisans to pick it up. Instead, has been closed up, and now the Hooves benefiting from what, 200 gold? Not even worth the breath it takes to say it out loud. Meanwhile, we're going to see a retreat, or return rather, back to the neutral game, back to farming up inside the map. And again, the longer this game goes, the more I personally am going to be favoring the Herculean Hooves in these team fights.
Yeah, I mean, this double assassin and a Yemoja, like you were talking about earlier, it's like, who's going to frontline for this squad? It has to be the Yemoja. You don't want her to be the only frontline for it, and she's got to kind of stick in that backline. I don't really see Yemoja being that up in your face, you know, at the forefront of all of it kind of presence. That kind of tends to fall more towards the warrior, more like Xingqians and Ymirs.
Yeah, now Yemoja going to be playing a little bit further back, sustaining her team, likely looking for the Plex with Riptide as Snoopy taking a little bit of damage, but not really having any threaten. We got another little look at it. Fields of Love used, Disapparate used, and, well, Disapparate wins.
Oh, and Ionic thrown against the wall as Supernova comes through, but a Riptide will make sure he gets out of danger. Wins a Shamash, and Baskin with the masterful shot off the back of the Centaurus will take down yet another one. Pagon falls for the second time this game. Relentless One gets caught by the leap and the stun right after from Gino, and that'll force him backwards a little bit. Herculean Hooves on the retreat after they get their quick pick on the top side of the jungle.
Man, taking a peek at the builds here, very interesting build from Snoopy. Goes for the Death Toll into Pythag's piece, and then Shoes of the Magi. It's a lot of lifesteal for him, but he is sacrificing a bit of penetration early on in the build. He's sacrificing a little bit of power as well, so I'll be excited to see where he goes next. It's going to be the Enchanted Ring pickup, likely going to be the Demonic Grip to find a little bit of penetration and help out on these structures once the siege starts to start up in earnest. That is a very unique build on the Soul. Maybe he's going to go full auto attack rather than that hybrid build we've been come to expect from this pick.
I'm going to take a little peek-see over at Pagon as well, picking up into the Silver Breastplate. I imagine probably Breastplate of Valor might be the pickup for this one, try and deal with some of Mast and Baskin's aggression.
Yeah, Pagon just has been building this item on the majority of gods that he's been playing. He really likes that additional survivability as well as cooldown. It's a great way to slot it into your build. And as you already said, man, the Herculean Hooves have a great dive composition between Mast and Meerkat alone. I mean, that should be enough to warrant a pickup like that for Pagon.
Snoopy will get out thanks to the help of the Sapperate and a little bit of extra healing to boot. Thanks to the lifesteal from the Pythag's piece and the Death's Toll, he's able to get himself back up to about 2/3 health after Sino had brought him down to almost none at that point. Meerkat is going to farm up on this Wukong alongside Mast. Meerkat still a little bit behind in experience. Relentless One has been able to keep the farm game up ahead of him, but it's kind of to be expected. Meerkat, despite the plays that we've seen from him in the later stages of the games, he's always kind of has this a little bit of an early deficit that he doesn't seem to mind.
No, especially with this build, you gotta expect him to have a much slower time inside the lane. Delays the Void Shield, goes for a stacking item inside a Soul Eater, and Sun Wukong not exactly the god that you're really looking to have boxing matches with, especially up against something like Camazotz out of the Soul Lane. Meerkat more so concerning himself with the team fight come late, and his only job inside said team fight is to make sure that Pagon isn't having a good time, and with the build that he has right now, he is going to have a little bit of a harder time closing that gap, but it looks like he is going to be moving into the Winged Blade, and in Season 8, Winged Blade got a slight buff, now has 30 magical protections on it, as well as all the stat lines that it had before, meaning that Pagon's going to have a very hard time once that item is finished up.
Relentless One takes a good little bit of poke, but he is a Camazotz. He'll be able to heal that back up pretty nicely thanks to the Vampire Bats. He's also got any blood pools across the map potentially, or just his leap. There's so many different ways this Camazotz can stay alive. Pyromancer started up, getting very low. The bubble is going to be thrown out, and actually Pyromancer leashed. Herculean Hoofs don't want to fully commit to that one. They'll take it away quickly, but the River's Rebuke comes out. Crashes down onto no one. Drop kick in the back by Mass. Sino's going to pop that shield and dive aggressively onto him, but he has to get out of the winds of Smosh. Meanwhile, the bat out of hell from Relentless One needs one more basic onto Baskin. He's still alive on the bottom end. Snoopy gets a kill on a Sino. The Centaurus will finally be the end of his demise there as Relentless One picks him up with the Screech. Everyone on the Artisans on full retreat as they're under half health or less. Stun onto Ionic, and that's likely to spell doom for the support and maybe even for Pagon as well. He's forced to use the Aegis. Mass comes through, but a flicker will get Pagon out. Can't say the same for Relentless One. He leaps in, but only to his doom as Snoopy gets the last basic.
That's our first look at the woes of the Sturdy Artisans draft. Nobody able to create separation. No one creating space for anyone inside of this team composition because everyone needs space on the side of the Sturdy Artisans. The second the Herculean Hoofs were able to group up as 5, that fight simplifies. It's just Meerkat and Mass acting as that deterrent and creating the space for Baskin and Snoopy, and generally winning the fights. Sturdy Artisans need to play a more pick-based style around these objectives, have to look for essentially, they have to look for jumps, man. They got to jump people, 2 versus 1s, 3 versus 1, so they can come into these engagements with a slight advantage. It's just too squishy a composition right now.
Yeah, I don't think I saw a single person targeting Snoopy either. Everybody just kind of tunnel vision onto Meerkat, Mask, and Baskin there, and nobody dealt with Snoopy, who's a level 17 soul with 3.5 items online. Like, you cannot ignore that one. They're going to get the Gold Fury and maybe a little bit more to boot onto that one. Pagon looks like he's down without a... For now, he's got his flicker going through. Centaurus comes down only onto Stewart. Drop kick against the wall into a stellar burst. Snoopy takes down Stewart, but Relentless One finds a pick onto Mask, making a 1-for-1, but Meerkat will pick up Pagon on the backside of it with the Master's Will. Vampire Bats doesn't find anything. It makes it a 2-for-1 trade in favor of the Hoofs.
It's just so easy for Meerkat to get into the back line. Nobody can help Pagon. Nobody can help Stewart. The plan is simple. Herculean Hoofs say, nobody's standing between us and the carries of the Sturdy Artisans. Let's just go get them. And that's exactly what they do. Sturdy Artisans essentially have no peel. It's all damage output. Sino trying his best to create some space, but he is simply a nemesis. He just cannot stick around in these engagements long enough to make sure that Pagon and Stewart are able to get their damage off.
Well, with that tier 2 tower that opens up the Phoenix of the mid lane, Oni minions will push up respectively throughout their lanes, and they'll have to go clear those out. Otherwise, they may risk losing more towers. Still 3 standing for Sturdy Artisans, but this ticking time bomb of a late game that kind of was brought upon themselves is slowly getting closer to that 0 mark.
It is, and now the gold lead that we were hoping, if you're a Sturdy Artisans fan, if you were hoping this composition could work, would be in their favor, but instead it's the Herculean Hoofs benefiting from 5,000 and the defensive positioning around the Fire Giant.
Well, Gino gonna go up into Draconic form, find the stun onto Ionic, off the Fields of Love onto the support, but Snoopy will find Ionic with the Supernova into the Centaurs, goes Baskin, looking for the snipes. He'll find Pagon with all 3 shots, but he doesn't have the masterful shot to deal the final damage, doesn't need it because Meerkat will grab Stewart on the backside. Relentless One picks up Baskin, looking for a second one with the Ionic, and Gino will be able to find him, but Sino falls to Mask, drop kicked against the wall. Mask picks up the double kill on Relentless. It's only Pagon left standing, but he is on his last leg, and I'm not sure he's going to have a chance to steal this Fire Giant away.
Legitimately, that was almost a best-case scenario team fight for the Sturdy Artisans. They separate the engagement, so it's not really coming down to who's got the better front line, who's got the better space creation for your backlines. Instead, it was whose dive was going to work faster. Unfortunately for the Artisans this time around, it was the Herculean Hoofs who were able to win out on that backline dive and then work their way back into their own backline and collapse in. Unfortunate situation leads to Fire Giant on 3 members of the Herculean Hoofs. Now it's time to siege, and some of the most important members still have the buff. Sure, Baskin not going to be benefiting from it, but Snoopy should be able to make up for that lack of hunter damage on the structures through this soul, and having 2 frontliners able to trade aggro of these towers means that Fire Giant isn't going to have to work too hard to keep them sustained up.
Level 15 on the Cupid. Stewart has not had much luck and much favor for himself with this pick. Hasn't really been able to get a great ultimate off either. The first, 3 or 4 that we saw were thrown at Snoopy when Disapparate was up. And that last fight only managed to grab Gino with it, and Gino was fine because his goal was to stun Ionic to set up for Snoopy. Not really getting a lot of value out of this Hunter. Sturdy Artisans, as we keep talking about this late game going through, I feel that Fields of Love is probably one of their best ultimates to bring them back in, but I just haven't seen a great one from Stewart yet.
We've seen some good usage of the ultimate just as disengage tools. A couple of times the Herculean Hoofs have looked for dives on this left-hand side, and Stewart drops Field of Love and says, okay, look, I'm going to get my team out of this situation, but no way we're winning a team fight with this ultimate down, and that's generally how it's panned out so far. Left-hand side of the map, Herculean Hoofs looking to siege out this Tier 2 tower. No defense from the City Artisans because it's going to go down pretty quickly. Finally, Sino starting to make his back, but seems like the Hoofs want to siege now.
Yeah, they're going to go straight in. Meerkat into the back line, but Baskin is focused on to Relentless One. There is no health left on that Soul Laner. He is down faster than you can even imagine. Sino picks up Gino on the front end of it. Sino still diving far back into the back line to get back to the safety of his team, but they got what they wanted. They get the Phoenix at the cost of Gino.
Yeah, losing out on the support for the most important Phoenix on the map, yeah, I think they're happy to take that trade every single day of the week. Not like they even lost the Fire Giant buff. Gino did not have that around his waist going into that one, so now we can see the Herculean Hoofs start to strip away the Sturdy Artisans jungle, regroup, and try again. They still have 15 seconds left on Relentless One's respawn, so they could have a slight opportunity here to take a peek towards this mid-Phoenix.
Baskin will step up. Meerkat at the forefront with them. Don't have a minion wave just yet. Centaurus goes out into the backline. Sino trying to go on to Baskin. The heroic leap comes through from Mass. Hang on, Willman, it's fine. Meerkat stuck under the tower just a little too long. Riptide grabs two, but Ionic doesn't have any follow-up on the back of it. Gets a nice heal off to the rest of the team. Relentless One will be topped off back to full. That'll be a full retreat from Herculean Hoofs. They don't have that dive. They don't have that Phoenix push now.
Fire Giants still on the belt of 2 for another minute here. Both Mast and Snoopy maintain their buff, but the Sturdy Artisans, through the efforts of Sino, are able to at least maintain their middle Phoenix here. Snoopy left isolated, takes a small skirmish with the Relentless One, but it's Gino now who's the target of the aggression. Should be able to walk out of that one relatively easily. I don't imagine we see another fight happen until this Fire Giant respawns, and the Herculean Hoofs should be the aggressors on it. Sturdy Artisans is going to have to make a hard decision. Do we want to defend it or just let it go?
Sturdy Artisans is going to start up the Primal Fury. It's going down very quickly. Gino will manage to at least throw a hammer out there for their trouble, but they trade out the Pyromancer. Snoopy and Baskin going to make their way to the right-hand side of the map. Snoopy will pretty much on his own, absolutely no problem, be able to push this one down, as all souls do. Tier 2 tower falls down relatively quickly for them and clears out the last of the structures on the map. All that's left now to defend are the two Phoenixes, one mid, one into the short lane. And when these two fights inevitably pop up at one of these Phoenixes, what is Artisan's best shot back into it?
They gotta hope that the dive just works. I mean, it's a spearhead composition of a bunch of squishies, so they gotta hope whoever they touch just immediately evaporates. They have the tools to do so. They have the ability to strip defense from whoever they want through Sino, and the burst potential is certainly there between Camazotz and Merlin. But I'm concerned, man. The longer this game goes, we've been saying it for the last 25 minutes, the more so I'm going to favor this Herculean Hoofs draft. It's just so much easier to execute on. Small point of correction from earlier on. I had hypothesized that Snoopy was going to be looking for the Demonic Grip to get a little bit of additional penetration, but instead the 10% from Pythag's piece and now Typhon's Fang as well seems to be enough for him. It's a very sustain-heavy build here from Snoopy. It's just so much lifesteal. The Death's Embrace as well, going to be helping him out a lot inside these engagements. As long as he's auto-attacking somebody, he's going to be nigh unstoppable unless he gets slammed by a ton of anti-heal, and I'm not sure there's enough on the side of the Sturdy Artisans to really dissuade him.
Matter of fact, he picked up his own anti-heal. That Toxic Blade is a final pickup by Snoopy. A little bit of extra flat pen for him. But most importantly, that extra anti-heal that now he provides onto the enemy team. And wait, there was a Fire Giant here, right? Where did health go?
it went to the way of Baskin and Snoopy. I mean, double hunter composition, that's how it's going to pan out every single day of the week, especially with the Coerce ticking on to both of them with Gino's help. And now it's time for Siege Part 2, this time with Fire Giant on 5 members, of the gold lead looking worse than it has the entirety of the match. 11,000 in favor of the Herculean Hoofs. Left side Phoenix going to be spawning soon, so the Sturdy Artisans have an opportunity here to get that back up, and they've done a great job pushing out that wave.
God, he swings so fast on that soul. I'd be terrified to be on the receiving end of those basic attacks. As you can see, they'll clear out the last little ward that got thrown there. Minions being slowed down before they can make their way into the Phoenix. Pagon being dove into the back by Meerkat up onto the Somersault Cloud. He will go. There's Rebuke fall through. Relentless one. Able to get one big one onto the dive. Stewart throws his ultimate. Only hits Snoopy on the backside. Gino as well has to be careful. Meerkat under half health. And Relentless One is just playing a distraction for the other 3 members of the Herculean Hooves. They're still, for some reason, trying to chase him out. And Mask will be forced to leap away. But now pushing up the fire minions in. Another dive into the back line goes Meerkat. Supernova as well. Just evaporates Stewart. And he's sent back into the grayscale, waiting for 55 seconds before he has another chance at combat. He might not get that chance, as Relentless One is sent to the same fate. Ionic and Pagon, the last 2 alive. The Emoja Merlin against the world here. 4 strong. They have to defend against. They've got potential, but they're going to have to do something about it. Quick heroic leap in. Pagon has to go back to the fountain, and that seals the deal. Herculean Hooves now put themselves up at championship point.
Yeah, match point here. If the Hooves are able to clean out one more, they're going to be taking home $30,000 as a team. I think you could leave that game up to composition diff, man. Legitimately, there just wasn't enough frontline. And we saw it time and time again. How many times did Meerkat just walk at Pagon and everyone was like, well, it's not my job to peel. I'm a squishy. I can't do it. Pagon, you got to get out there on your own. Why are you getting caught out by Meerkat? It's just a failing of the composition here from the Sturdy Artisans. I think that'll be easy enough to clean out in P's and B's.
Yeah, well, let's see if maybe they can make that correction in the P's and B's for game number 4. It will now be here. Herculean Hooves, they had the 1-game advantage, and now they're taking advantage of that one, being up 2-1. We'll have the desk break down game number 3 right after this break.
Welcome to my world. 오랜만이 나도 반겨말아 걸어 내게 맡겨 결국 모든 것이 바꾸야. 해가 뜨고 눈을 감아 엉켜버린 사이코 같은 패턴에 눈이 돌아 몇 년 동안 쌓이고 네가 잠이 들 땐 너와 함께 하고 싶어 미쳐버린 내가 과연 어른이 되나 싶어 밤만 되면 이러는 게 병인가로 싶어 하지만 다시 밤이 찾아오면 나 I got that fire I got that juice 밤이 되고 난 vampire 괜찮은 물 안 베린 on my empire with that loop feeling like I'm Alexander 다 빛이 내리대며 밤이 돼 난 vampire 밤이 되면 난 vampire okay 내리 쪄진 베토벤의 War One I sipped the juice from that moonlight 지정한 Silicon yeah 언제나 정반대 밤이 되면 동공은 확대되지 Monday through everyday 창조 중 그 외나 박대 모두가 잠들 때 너는 더욱 맑아지는 느낌 변한 끝에 살아도 평생 나는 지신 묶인 말하며 그새 내 삶이라 되는지 잡아봐 내가 어디까지 가는지 그걸 내 고리는 하고도 과연 내가 빛을 내지 못하는지 악마를 내가 가라앉기를 원하지 불꽃이 꺼지길 원해요 but 언제나 빛이 나니 정답이 뻔했지 정답이 I got that fire I got that juice 밤이 되고 난 vampire 괜찮은 물 안 베린 on my empire with that loop feeling like I'm Alexander 다 빛이 내리대며 밤이 돼 난 vampire 밤이 되면 난 vampire okay 내리 쪄진 베토벤의 War One
Sturdy Artisans are going to face a little bit of pressure here in the North American Grand Finals of the Phase 1 SCC in North America after a fantastic performance from the Herculean Hoofs here in game number 3 to give them championship point just before we move into game number 4. And what a performance it was to stand up to the task of the draft the Sturdy Artisans had. Certainly nothing to scoff at. Taco with me one more time to break this one down. What do you see here, Taco, from the Herculean Hoofs that give them the edge?
It was the transformation from that individual style of gameplay. It seems as though the Herculean Hoofs remember that it's a team-focused game at the end of the day, and we saw them just working together quite well. Most particularly, I want to point out Meerkat's efforts on that Sun Wukong. He was such a suppressive factor for Pagan, never really allowed him to have a moment to breathe on this Merlin, and Meerkat controlling so much of the fight pressure, especially from the back line. It just prevented any sort of follow-up potential out of the Sturdy Artisans, made it really easy to pick off Stuart as well in the process, because Cupid, he's really dependent on being able to play off of his team.
And this was maybe the standout performance of the weekend for Snoopy, and how important that is for him, and his confidence moving into the remainder of this set, I don't think can be understated. You give a pick like Soul over to Snoopy, you expect big things. Now he's put together a great game here in game number 3. Only bodes well, I think, moving forward into the future. I think you emphasize it well, though. I mean, you draft a Fafnir into this composition. You have to play around that if you're this Soul, if you're this Chiron with the Coerce, and the Herculean Hooves do it well. This is not something we see all that often, Taco, and it's the Sturdy Artisans on the back foot.
Sturdy Artisans, though, definitely have a lot of respect for this roster that they're up against, Olsen, because one more time, just friendly reminder that a lot of these Herculean Hoops members, they have been there, done that, got the T-shirt. Quite literally, all of them own jerseys, I'm pretty sure, at this point.
I'm sure they do.
And maybe some of that inside apparel as well.
Oh, that's right. Good call.
Oh, yeah, keeping an eye out, even on the SCC.
What is that, shop.smiteproleague.com, I think, so you can grab some of that?
That sounds about right.
That sounds about right, yeah. Grab yourself a... well, those are SPL jerseys. You can also buy, like, the generic Smite Pro League gear, which I think is pretty cool. And, like, if you want to buy, like, a Dolson jersey instead of, like, a team jersey, you can just get the Smite Pro League. I think you can customize it, too. Who am I kidding? Nobody wants a Dolson jersey. I want a Dolson jersey. My parents probably want a Dolson jersey. That might be it. Anyway, that's my Inside Apparel plug. One for the weekend. Not too bad for me here. Moving on in to what is game number 4, though, Taco. Very important. This is the now pivot point where the Sturdy Artisans, it's bounce back time, right? I mean, you fall down here in game number 3. You got to draft yourself something in picks and bans for this next game to give you that edge.
It could definitely go either direction at this point, and that's the scary part when you're dealing with this level of talent, because both of these teams have made it evident that if you give one even the slightest edge, it's going to be difficult to try and recontrol the map pressure from there. And most noticeably, like I said, this has come down pretty heavily for me, at least, looking at that solo jungle effort that we have seen from both of these teams, and a lot of times most of the match outcomes have just been dictated by that alone.
Agree. It's not easy to keep Sino in check, but Sino felt pretty in check there in game number 3 for the Sturdy Artisans, against the Sturdy Artisans. I don't know. He's on that team, but I don't know which way that one flips. Sino was kept in check in game 3 is what I'm looking to say. And he'll receive a little bit of emphasis in the pick ban phase here as well. Eset and Naja off the board. Giannis has been a pretty consistent force in the ban phase here as well. Chiron, though, first and foremost, taken away by the Sturdy Artisans. They want to bring some control back to that duo lane.
Could see the Herculean Hoofs looking to run back that Fafnir, though, for Gino, given that it's still up for grabs. And Wukong, having been banned out, does leave an opportunity as well for a King Arthur selection, but seems as though Gilgamesh going to take priority over either of those picks here for the Hooves. And now the Artisans could possibly look for an opportunity to try and have a response, but they're going to go with what's been tried and true for them, Relentless Poppy, or excuse me, I always want to call him Russian Poppy, man. It's just like, that was such a habit for so many years, and now he's Relentless One, and it's a whole mess, but it's fine. That's my
luckily
that's
I didn't have the same exposure to that name, so I don't have the same trip up. I did have that with Belair changing into Scary D. That happened with me for a little while, but I totally understand the history still having an impact on the names here moving forward. Tiamat left open again, though, Taco, after the first 6 bans and the first 5 picks. That's going to be a 5th pick Tiamat here for the Sturdy Artisans. gotta feel like you got away with one there.
There are just so many other bands that are taking priority right now, Dolson,
There's so
because
many.
of how strong the early game meta shifts have really been between these two teams throughout this set. And that's the main thing to take note of here, because Gilgamesh, Merlin, they still have a little bit of early game presence, but not necessarily to the same degree as an Iset or a Neja might be able to provide. But Camazotz does kind of fit the bill for that early game pressure still in favor of the Artisans.
Chalk alert.
I know I need to keep an eye out for these solo lane picks, but I thought this Camazotz was originally going to be intended one more time for a Relentless one, but it seems as though he might be looking to make a Chalk debut.
Did you ever watch Chalk Zone?
Could be Sino Chalk though. I will not throw out the possibility.
Isn't there a name for that? What do we call it? The Chungle? Is that what it is? Chalk Jungle is Chungle? Is there? It could be. Let's expose ourselves to that possibility. Is that any good? Is Chalk Jungle any good?
He has damage. All right, like for all memes aside, the one viability that there is to Chalk is that he does have a definite snowball potential, but it is just so fickle to try and find it, because a lot of pressures, especially at this level of play, just understand how to deal with Chalk throughout a laning phase to not really leave themselves susceptible for that punishment period where Chalk's early game burst damage can kind of come into play. And again, it's a fairly interchangeable pick here between both solo and jungle. I do believe that Sino and Relentless One are both capable of piloting this god, and whether or not it's effective is a completely different question, especially up against the odds of a Guan Yu and Cabrakan. That's a lot of lockdown potential from the Hoofs.
A lot of space control, you feel like, then for the Hoofs as well, and then there's a Merlin that wants to make use of that space. Game number 4, will the Herculean Hoofs bring home the $30,000? J-Mac and Mifflin will let us know.
Well, we'll have to see it here with the, we'll call it a Sino special, Mifflin, of bringing in something strange into the jungle. This time it will be that Chalk jungle, and I think Taco had it best. He does damage, but what else is this Chalk going to provide for them, Mifflin?
More than an Iset would, if I had to guess, right? I mean, this guy's going to play whatever he wants. If he wants to chungle, he can chungle all for all I care, man. But at the end of the day, I think the Sturdy Artisans here in game number 4 come away with a much better composition that they had in the last one. I mean, the front lines there. Pagon's back on Tiamat somehow, some way. Stuart got a top-tier Hunter. This is just good across the board. I mean, take away where these gods are allocated. Take the jungle, put it into the soul lane if you want. Either way, I think that their team fight is going to form up much better.
For the time being, we'll have to see how this Chalk can stack up for this squad. Into the mid lane, we see Pagon getting a little bit of an advantage. A lot of asking for some little trading potential between them for the time being. Iana can throw out the Sunder on, see if they can find Gino, but Gino not going to get yanked back by that giddy up just yet, so he'll live to see another day. Actually going for the blink on this Cabrakan as opposed to the beads or opposed to the Sunder that we've been seeing so much, and maybe this is why that's going to be a blink and a pull of the beads from Stuart.
Had Giddy Up connected with Gino, I mean, that's just first blood, and Stuart wouldn't have to be worried about not having beads at this point. Unfortunately for him, that's not how it pans out, as Sino moving forward with the rain cloud. That slow so strong at this point, as well as the heal, and it's going to be just enough to get him out, unless Mass plays forward and finds first blood.
Yeah, Matt's going to get that return blink, and they might be looking for another one, but Pagon still just a little too much health for them to take down for the time being, so first blood goes the way of the Herculean Hooves, and maybe looking for another, but Mass has no mana, so he's not going to be able to push up onto Pagon just yet. Instead, he'll get back to the safety of his tower.
Man, I can hear it right now, or read it rather if I felt like it. I'm sure Twitch chat are saying Chungle's bad, but give him a second. Sino just needs a couple more items under his belt, and then he's become a chainsaw. He loves to go for that auto attack style build, which means that he should be able to match up relatively well up against Mass on this Gilgamesh. Ionic dashing forward, loses out on so much of his HP.
Yeah, I'm not sure how worth that dash was there, Ionic. A great response from Snoopy. Throws out the Alluring Spirits immediately to taunt him back in after the dash does connect, and he ends up losing a lot more health than Gino did in that situation. Now, you're talking about, this auto attack jungle. Is this including crit in the build, or is this just some basic attacks, some big heavy hitting numbers?
It's flavor of the week for Sino. I've seen him run the crit once or twice in my day, but I'm expecting something like a Stone Cutting Sword, generally an Executioner. Ionic, though, in a little bit of trouble, is the target of the aggression from Geno. Tremors, not enough to lock him down, able to dash on out of there. And Stewart, maintaining so much of his HP bar, means that I think Sturdy Artisans came out ahead in this engagement inside the duo lane, for now.
Well, that Sunder is back up for Ionic if he decides to go for it. Now, it's not an upgraded Sunder, just a tier 1 for the time being, so he's not going to get that extra damage on top of it, just going to get the flat true damage shot, and that'll be that. But on a full health target, always much more valuable. Relentless One going to try and box with Meerkat here, but he's taking a lot of damage. He's got a decent amount of sustain into the kit, but Relentless One gets punted back into the tower, and Mats picks up the second kill of the game.
Tough loss, Relentless One there, man. That is a slow start for the Sturdy Artisans, and that's not the type of start you want to see from a composition like this. Chalk generally wants to be ahead. It is not a great god from behind, does not deal a ton of damage, and being an auto-attacker style, or at least I had assumed would be. This is a different look for it. Sino going for the Warrior's Tab-Eye could shift his build towards a more ability-based damage play, but Meerkat having to deal with it. Blue buff gives him enough mana for the ultimate, but not enough space to get him out of there. That Warrior's Tab-Eye coming in a big way, picking up a kill. First one on the board for Sturdy Artisans.
There you go. There's first kill for Sino on the board with that Chalk Jungle. Geno, though, looking for Ionic, and he's got the backup of Baskin there. And, yeah, Dharmic Pillars, those look cute. It makes for a nice little ring around Geno there as he stands over your corpse.
Man, Ionic's having a really rough start to this one. Some questionable dash-ins, some questionable positioning there, getting picked out inside the jungle. But now that he's level 5, Ganesh is going to start to hit his stride, as well as being able to finish up those reinforced greaves. Means that he should be able to stick around in these engagements a little bit longer, but he's got to clean it up, man. So far, the Ganesh is not impressed.
So far, it's been a bit of a struggle. It might be another struggle for Relentless One. He dashes in, but now he's got the Bat of Hell and ult advantage, so he'll return fire and solo Meerkat. Sino late to the rotation, but not late for this potential blue buff steal. He hears that drop kick go through. He might want to take this one away. In fact, he does steal that buff away. Mass unable to secure it. Now Relentless One gets a nice and shiny blue buff around his waist.
And now Mass under some aggression here, eats the Vampiric Bats, uses the Hero's Leap to close gap back into the tower, playing with fire on the right-hand side, but the same can be said on the left.
Oh, Stewart's going to get taunted back in by the Alluring Spirit. Sino's able to pick up one, but Snoopy grabs Stewart onto the back end. Meerkat trying to do anything he can to maybe get this kill on the Relentless One. He has the potential for it, but he needs a couple more basics to leap away.
He's out.
Plus the Vampire Bats means the Relentless One heals for the time being, and Sino will make sure that Meerkat does not continue the aggression forward.
I cannot believe Mass selects to use the Hero's Leap to run away and then immediately just walks back in on the Sturdy Artisans when your leap is down. I mean, the jungle's at its best. He just drops the slow and wins the trade. And that's exactly how this one pans out. A very fast pace so far to this game. 7 kills on the board already, but really neither team in the lead.
Yeah, it's pretty much dead even here, about maybe 100 gold separating them. As far as levels, it's pretty much even across the board. Trade a level here and there amongst the two teams. So yeah, dead even at this stage of the game, but right now Mast is making his presence known as well as Sino. They've been a part of 4 of the kills so far of the 7 onto the map. Both those junglers have 2 kills a pop.
Yeah, I'm just really waiting on Sino to go back to base. I want to know where he's going with this one. With the Warrior Tab I pick up, it makes me feel like he could go for a Transcendence build on this Chalk, but generally when he plays this, it is going to be a Stone Cutting Sword in that slot, which is exactly what Mast is elect for on the other side. Looks like a Stone Cutting Sword going to be finished up there from the 1000-fold Blade. For now, Sturdy Artisans benefiting from a couple 100 gold in the lead, but it's really about which team is able to pick up the neutral objective first. 6.5 minutes in, neither Scorpion has fallen. I'm talking Gorp and I'm talking Forp. That's right, chat. I'm a Gorp Forp guy now. Aggro told me I have to, so I will.
Hey, we support Gorp and Forp here. Whether it be because we have to or because we want to, we're supporting Gorp and Forp out here. And right now, Sturdy Artisans are trying to support themselves to be able to push it to a potential Game 5. They're down 1 right now in this series. They were down 1 to begin with. Their Game 2 victory at least kept them in the pace for the time being, and they're going to need a lot more if they want to push themselves in and take it to Game 5 and win this set out. But Hoofs aren't just going to let up just yet. They're still pushing forward despite Relentless One still kind of getting the better end of Meerkat there. We do see an ultimate from Gino, but it's not going to find anything. Dharmic Pillars and the winds are dropped through. Yannick gets pushed right back into it, and the rocket from Snoopy will end that one. Sino goes up with the Thunder Call and is able to pick up a little bit of damage onto him. Not quite enough to take out Meerkat just yet. Pagon trying to close it. We'll get it to Consume. And takes Mass Soul right out of his body and sends him back to the fountain.
Ionic for Mass, that's a good trade for the Sturdy Artisans here. Pagon picking up credit for that kill and benefiting from a 1-level lead at this point. Sino dealing a ton of damage in that engagement despite not having gone back to base as Pagon dropped down low by Baskin, but level 10 Merlin doesn't really have the opportunity or the cooldown reduction enough to chase out that kill, so it should be a pretty easy reset from there. Gorp does fall, and now Gold Fury has already spawned up, so the next team to pick up a kill should likely be grouping up on that POI.
Jotun's Wrath for Sino on this Chalk jungle. So not the Transcendence just yet, but I'm assuming this is going to lead him to be that more ability-focused damage onto it. Likely not going to go into the basic attacks when you're picking up just straight cooldown reduction.
No, that is a very 2012 build for junglers. Not often you see him go immediately into the Jotun's Wrath here in 2021, but has decent penetration, decent power. The cooldown reduction is the most important stat on that item. It just feels good to buy. I mean, if you guys at home haven't done it in a while, it just feels good. Sino should be able to get involved inside these fights a little bit more often, and on a god like Chalk, that CDR is so important.
Well, for basically free, they're able to pull the ultimate off of Meerkat. No blinks, no ult expended on the side of Sturdy Artisans. So Meerkat will be a little less safe for the time being, though it is like Guan Yu. He's still relatively safe. And as we're talking about Gorp and Forp, we do see the Gold Fury one taken down, and now Forp will fall directly afterwards. So Gold Fury now on the map. It'll be a matter of which team decides to take them out. Slow from the Demon Throne, but not going to get anything more than that. As Gino lures it under the tower to make sure to take it down.
Yeah, looking at the compositions from both teams here, it's something we got to talk about earlier on in this set, but neither squad really has the greatest confirmation on the map. It's really a game of objective burn. Who's going to have the opportunity to look at it first, and whoever does is trying to sneak it away before the opposition can show up. So that means we're likely looking for a pick before either team is confident enough to group up on the neutral objective itself. Herculean Hoofs, however, are feeling confident enough to look towards this purple buff invade.
Well, Dharmic Pillars will be thrown, but it's not enough to save that purple buff. It does get stolen away. And another ult on the right-hand side. Still diving out. Meerkat, and we'll kill him under the tower. And back over to the left side we jump as Gino falls. Subi throws the rocket out and hits Pagon, but not before Pagon's able to pick up that kill. Second one on the board now for the Tiamat that somehow got let through yet again.
And Meerkat falls as well. That's 2 dead on the side of Herculean Hoofs. Could be an opportunity to look towards either neutral objective. This time around, it's going to be Sino and Relentless One looking at the Pyromancer. And nobody on the Herculean Hoofs in range to rotate in, which means the Sturdy Artisans are going to pick that one up absolutely for free. We're starting to get our first look at separation in this game, about 1,000 gold in favor of the Order side team. And that's a good little chunk of change this early in the game, but experience is the name of the game at this point, and that's also going the way of the Order side team. 1,000, closer to 2,000 now after clearing that wave. This is going to create a great opportunity for them to group up and try and force an engagement on top of this Gold Free. And when we're talking about burn potential, Sturdy Artisans have plenty of it. Relentless One has decent damage out of Soul Lane. Ionic on the Dharmic Pillar is going to be consistent tick damage as well as defense shred. And we already know what Pagon's able to do on this Tiamat. That damage output is nutty.
I mean, Tiamat as a whole is pretty nutty, but yeah, that objective damage that she can put out, whether it be with her minions or just her base abilities outside of there, a lot of damage can come from this dragon. Let's see how Pagon performs on it this game. We did get a 7-0 unstoppable in the first game that we got to witness for the day for him. And yeah, a bit terrifying. I'm honestly still just shocked that they allowed a Tiamat to get through yet again. And they not only did they let it get through, they first picked a Chiron for Sturdy Artisans. Herculean who said, all right, cool. We don't care about Tiamat. And they pick up Baskin's Merlin. They pick up, I believe, Gilgamesh on that. And then they just allowed Tiamat to go through.
Herculean Hoofs again trying to find a purple buff invade, and again are pushed away on this one. You watch a lot more SCC than I have so far this year. Does Baskin play Tiamat? I'm not sure that I've seen him take that god.
I don't believe I've ever seen him play it. I can't imagine it's not in his god pool. I can only imagine every mid laner at a competitive level, SCC and up, have to at least have some kind of Tiamat in the build, but I haven't really seen Baskin favorite, so maybe that makes sense, but right now Gino, he's going to get caught up by the giddy up, throws out the ultimate to cut off one path, but now he's just stuck in the middle and can only tremor to try and do anything, turn some kind of fire. Relentless One is met by Mask, and Meerkat gets out of the drop kick with the bat out of hell. Relentless One's out for the time being, but there are still means of catching him if they wish to go for it. However, Gold Fury on that left-hand side, Rocket immuned out by Sino, but he's going to get stuck inside the money bags and will be taken down. Mask picks up one, Mask picks up Relentless on the flip side, but Sturdy Artisans do manage to pick up that Gold Fury.
At the end of the day, that seems like it pans out as a 2-for-2, but only one team picking up the neutral objective. Meerkat on the flank spots out a couple of low HP targets here, but no ultimate available to him. Means that he's going to have to let this one go. Despite the Herculean Hoofs establishing great dominance on this side of the map, it's too little too late. Gold Fury's already fallen. Pyromancer's dead as well. Sturdy Artisans have already cleaned up every single neutral objective, which means there's nothing for the Hoofs to fall back to.
They're going to look at this tier 1 tower at the very least, and they'll at least take
Not
that
bad.
500 gold off the map. So a good trade for them. Get a couple of kills, lose the neutral, but hey, you take a very important tower off the map and make it a little bit less safe for Pagon on the Tiamat. I can't say completely unsafe. It is a Tiamat after all, so we'll see how he handles the fights as they start breaking out closer towards this side of the map. Meanwhile, Stewart still trying to get that Transcendence stacked up because there's been so much action across the board. He hasn't had a chance to really stack up yet.
Yeah, he has not. At this rate, he might get lapped by Sino, who picks up Transcendence in his third slot. A little bit slow on the build. Surprised he likes to go for the Jotuns first, if Transcendence was the goal all along. Only 8 stacks on it right now. Going to be a little bit of farming, I think, in Sino's future going forward as Gino stunned out. Takes a little bit of damage, but no commitment from the Sturdy Artisans. Don't feel like diving this one just yet. Maybe they do, though. Take a peek at where Sino is.
He just turned around and saw Sino sitting in the back line. Sino going to throw out the ultimate and the axe on the bottom end of it, and Gino will fall thanks to the rotation from Relentless One. It would help seal the deal. Now Meerkat left to defend the tier 1 tower that they just lost for themselves. Sturdy Artisans, now they're looking to take a return tier 1 tower. Minions push in. Into the back line goes Stewart
Nice
on the
pillars.
killers. He's going to force everybody to stay a little bit further back. Relentless One with the bat out of hell. Wins a Samash drop. But only Sino is caught inside, and he'll beads to make sure he doesn't get pulled back. Rocket comes from downtown, but only just a poke out Sino for the time being. No further initiation from the Hoofs.
Man, Sino is making such good use of this tanky chalk. And when I say tanky, I'm talking about effective tankiness. Sure, he doesn't pick up any defensive items, but little known fact, the healing on chalk actually scales with power. So now that he's got Transcendence and Jotuns, that heal is giving him so much effective HP. So he's acting as a frontliner. Just one that does a ton of damage. I can see it now. I'm not going to queue up any Smite in the near future. I don't want to play with any Chungles that aren't Sino, so I know you guys at home are getting some crazy ideas, but not everyone can go 5, 2, and 1 on this god.
Or, you know, the 5-something on the E set that's been banned away from him as well. I'm kind of with you. I think we avoid a little bit of Conquest for the time being. Let everybody get their fun E set and Chungle memes out of the way, and then we'll come back to when everything has kind of normalized itself. As right now, it's a bit of a normalization into the game. Both tier 1 towers in the mid have been taken out. Gold lead, again, not much of a gold lead right now. Only about 700 in favor of the Artisans so far, Mifflin.
But it does feel like the momentum is in the Artisan side of the table, isn't it? They have been going for sieges repeatedly. They're the ones going for the objectives as well. They cleared out the Pyro and the Gold Fury already, and with those respawning very soon, considering the pace of this one, I expect to see them be the first ones on the scene for the Gold Fury as it respawns. They've got great space control from Sino, the ability to lock down entire jungle pass with a giant silence field, as well as map-wide slows, it feels like, once he throws that axe and uses the third ability. He's just doing such a great job creating space for his team.
Yeah, it feels like Sino is really utilizing this chalk better than I think anybody really expected, unless you've been following Sino and you know what he can do. So at this point, you're like, it's just another Sino game. For those at home seeing this chalk jungle, they're probably thinking, well, chalk locked in, you might as well call it quits here. But Sino, like I said, 5-2-1. However, he's getting very close to that curse slash line of the 7-2 that we saw a lot yesterday, where you have your jungler goes 7-2, and then that's pretty much the end of the game for them. Hopefully, Sino can break that curse.
Hopefully, but I don't know, man. I'm sure there are plenty of fans at home that love to see Baskin and the boys, that's Herculean Hoofs, be able to sneak away with this one as well. They got plenty of fans in their own right. For now, though, it is the Sturdy Artisans starting up the neutral objective first. Pyromancer dropped down to 50%, but Gino turning the corner is enough to dissuade them from continually sending that one out. And that's just kind of the name of the game for objectives right now from both of these teams, with no confirmation on the board. It's all about burn and who can sneak one away.
Well, for the time being, it is just a farm for these two teams as they're trying to get their items stacked up. Sino's still working on his Transcendence. The Gauntlet of Thieves have all been finished up here, so I think that's the only stacking item really remaining now onto the board. Mask has gone for this Fighter's Mask yet again. Now, last game, he got the Tier 1 Mask by walking over his objective point, hit level 5, hit point on the map, but we'll have to hold that thought, though. Payon gets blink stunned by Gino into the mid lane. Stunned again after the beads fall off. The rocket from downtown. Snoopy able to pick up one and make it a second one as he gets the final basics inside of the Dharmic Pillars. Call it Eonic's own coffin as he falls down.
They're so healthy. Looks like they have an opportunity to look towards the Fire Giant right now. They don't have the greatest ability to tank it up. They are still incredibly low level. Gino just now getting over to level 13. Relentless One's got his work cut out for him, though, especially if he gets caught out this early. Beads expended. Bat out of hell as well.
And that's going to be a beads out of Stewart as Meerkat dives in with the cavalry charge. Aegis on the tail end. Oh, Ultimate comes out of Sino to silence him, but the silence doesn't matter as most of them use their beads, and there's going to be a blink from Sino. Gets him out of danger for now, so it's just Sino and Relentless One at the front end of it. Eonic just now respawning as well as Pagon. But that's going to be plenty of time for the Herculean Hoofs to start setting up here. Relentless doesn't have ult. Sino doesn't have ult. Their steal potential is pretty low here, especially with Baskin being the zone for this one. He just almost 100 to 0 Sino with just Fire Stance. How does he have any hopes of getting in there? The Screech a little bit off the mark there from Relentless One, not able to steal the Fire Giant away. That will go the way of the Hoofs.
The Hoofs, Fire Giant on 5, and retreat comes through cleanly. Relentless One seeing if maybe he can catch someone lazy back again. He does. Gino might have baited his team into a bad situation.
Dharmic Pillars go down. They're able to get at least one out of it, but they lose Relentless One in the process. Pagon picking up his third kill now onto the Tiamat. But look at the way that the Golden Experience have shifted in just a matter of a couple of minutes. Everything's pushing now in favor of the Hoofs.
It is. The Hoofs have so much gold left on the map to collect with Fire Giant on 4 members. There's still 5 towers standing and Primal Fury as well. Sturdy Artisans going to try their best to clean up what they can on the map, starting with Pyromancer. The more they're able to remove means that there's less for the Herculean Hoofs to take. But this gold deficit is likely going to grow pretty far in favor of the Chaos team, already up to 1,200 at this point, and with all these towers left available, with all these buffs up on the map as well, and with so much time left on this Fire Giant. Gotta imagine this Chaos team is feeling pretty good.
Yeah, right now. And Sturdy Artisans, I imagine they're not feeling down and out just yet. It's a fairly even game, about 2K or less separating the two teams. Even though they don't have that Fire Giant buff, they're still putting up a hell of a fight for them. The Sino still going into this more kind of glass candy style build. Now picking up that enchanted buckler will give him a little bit of tankiness option. But at this point, onto this chalk, you know, the name of your game is damage. Do you need to start electing towards more of a tanky bruiser build, or do you just keep committing to that damage?
I think he's going to go for a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but as far as I'm concerned, Chalk is starting to hit that critical point where he starts to fall off a little bit. It's more so now as the game ticks onward. Sino's job to just act as that front line. Earlier on, he was dealing a ton of damage, but he doesn't really win very many 1v1s on the map. Can't really take a 1v1 up against Mast, and if you can't beat the enemy jungler, there's not many people you can beat, maybe, if he's able to isolate Gino, but not often as support is on his own. So instead, going for this bruiser-style build, a little bit of additional movement speed means he can create space and get on a Baskin, make it annoying for him to operate, and that defense is going to help him out a lot as well in that sense.
We'll see how he's able to hold up here. Level 17 on the Chungle versus the level 19 that Mast has put up on this Gilgamesh. And a potential flank by Meerkat. He gets spotted on the ward. Pagon able to zone him out force him back to move to the rest of his team. Gino trying to go in with a stun, but it's Relentless One into the back line with the bat out of hell. Tharmic Pillars have dropped, but it's only Gino really affected by a masterful shot. Hits a bit from the Centaurs, but there's no ultimates left on the board for Sturdy Artisans. They don't have anything to fight back in. Meanwhile, Meerkat and Snoopy still holding on to the Cavalry Charge and the Rocket.
Yeah, Mast and Gino have poor usage of their ultimates there. Luckily, cooler heads do prevail, and the Herculean Hoofs maintain that Cavalry Charge as an engagement tool, and it seems like they realize now's the time.
Yeah, Mats is going right in with that drop kick of the Rocket. Hits 3 players. Snoopy gets some big damage off, and Mats is able to take down 1. But Meerkat finds the graves of Pagon. However, look at the health bars on the side of the Artisans. They got it set at minimum 2 to 3 back, and that's going to open up for the Phoenix. They still have Snoopy alive. He's low, but as long as he can get in there and get some damage through, but with no minions, it's even tougher for them to do so, even with that Fire Giant buff. Let's go on to a full retreat. Sino goes in, gonna throw out the ultimate, trying to find Gino, but it's not enough damage. Now Sino is the one who has to run away because Baskin throws out the arcane damage to just try and keep alive, but Gino falls down to Stewart. Now on the backside, Relentless One falls to Baskin as he dove in a little too aggressively. Now Stewart at half, Sino at not even a quarter health, but they don't have the damage to push into this Phoenix.
Fire Giant buff just now ticking away. Got to respawn in exactly 1 minute. Good play from Basket to be able to close out that kill for his squad, and great damage output as well. If the Herculean Hoofs can, they should be able to return back to base, reset, pick up some wards, establish vision dominance on the Fire Giant, utilize the lead that they've accumulated for themselves up until this point to try and pick up the biggest neutral objective in the game yet again. Now with 1 Phoenix exposed, if they're able to win out on a team fight cleanly, they've got a win condition as well. Don't have to work through the majority of the towers on the map if they're able to kill the majority of the Sturdy Artisans. The same cannot be said of the Order side team, but if they do win out cleanly, could at least get the objective for themselves too. The gold deficit's not so stifling that I think the Sturdy Artisans should let this one go. I expect them to step up to this Fire Giant and try and put up a defense.
Okay, so I didn't track this the last time that Baskin played this Merlin as far as this set goes, but I know yesterday he went with this alternate timeline, and the only use that Baskin actually got out of it was dying to the Titan. We'll see if maybe he can run that same mechanic back with it, only having a death to it. Blink by Relentless One gets out of the heroic leap. Sino goes in with the ultimate into the back line. Now the Dark Pillars drop down, holding Snoopy in place. But Snoopy and Meerkat are fighting back into it. The Tremors are causing so much disruption. Meerkat's got to get out. Snoopy finds 1. Relentless One finds the return trade onto it. Gino trying to go on full retreat, but Stewart is chasing him down with the giddy up. Meerkat so low into the back. Meerkat so low in the middle of 3. Pagon is still full health. He gets knocked up onto 1. Stunned by Gino. Make sure that Pagon has to turn his sights elsewhere. But Stewart is not giving up on this chase for Gino, while the rest of his team is not giving up chase on this solo lane side. Gino slowed down. Stewart still looking for the kill. He really does not want to give this one up.
I mean, Gino's done such a good job at this one of desyncing timers. Meerkat, a little bit of a cheeky fat finger on the beads, but doesn't cost him too much. At least sets up the kill onto Relentless One, and Gino on tour across the map is going to get caught out by Pagon here. Stewart has to feel bad spending the last 40 seconds chasing out that kill just for Pagon to pick it up. Ease bees.
Yeah, just for Pagon to consume it right at the very end and say, all right, thanks for leading him right to me, Stewart. I will take that kill, put myself now at 5-2. Meanwhile, Sino 5-3 still now onto Chalk. Hasn't hit that level 20 mark just yet. In fact, the only one to hit level 20 on the team is Pagon on this Tiamat. Everybody else struggling to hit that experience necessary. Even Meerkat still not quite level 20 yet on that Guan Yu, but he's been doing a lot of fighting this game compared to previous ones.
He really has. 4-7 is the solo laner for the Herculean, who's been a part of just about half of their kills up until this point, but having used all of his relics in that last engagement, it's going to be very hard for him to create the same amount of space that he has been inside of this next Fire Giant fight. Taking a peek across the board, those 30 Artisans have done a pretty good job maintaining the majority of their relics. Really, it's only Relentless One struggling to keep his up. Other than that, Sino's Blink should be up by the time he regroups, as should be the Ankh for Ionic. 30 Artisans is going to be coming to this fight nearly at full strength.
Well, Fire Giant standing, waiting for someone to take a peek at it. Baskin elects for a Wing Blade for his final item in the build. along with a fully stacked Charon's coin. Means that he'll have the full benefit of that item. Soul Gem is stacked up and ready for good procs, but let's see that put on hold for just a moment as we see yet another quick pause amongst the two teams. And at this stage of the game, Mifflin with only, 4,000 gold separating these two teams. Experience starting to kind of even itself out here. We're looking at basically a dead even game coming to this team fight. Where do we start kind of pushing this advantage? What is the foothold that Sturdy Artisans need to try and claw themselves back in despite being down in this gold deficit?
I think the gold is negligible at this point. The Sturdy Artisans essentially just have to group up, be present, and be ready for the team fight around Fire Giant. We're coming in at a neutral state. If they're able to establish the defensive positioning and utilize Sino on this chalk to just act as a wall around the objective, that's one way in. Or maybe just dropping Dharmic Pillars on 4.
Yeah, maybe you can just take down Mask. Relentless One will be the one to get the pickup kill thanks to the help of that Dharmic Pillars. Meerkat might be next as he's getting chased out the rocket from Snoopy. Not going to get too much value out of it. He's falling flow in the back line, and Pagon will be able to the one to pick him up. Gino running out at full health after his Pride Wind is already popped. Leaves Baskin all alone to face off against Pagon. Pagon is just staring him down on this Tiamat and leaving the rest of the team to start up this Fire Giant. Relentless One, the one to tank this up as Stewart just pumps auto after auto into it. They're slowly taking this Fire Giant down. There won't be anyone to contest it just because of how far back they've been pushed.
All right, we're talking 26.5 minutes into this game. 5 members of the Sturdy Artisans with Fire Giant and 4 towers still standing between them and the exposed birds of the Herculean Hoofs. I think we might see the Sturdy Artisans go ahead and group up. Maybe have Sino split push mid, but they're going to be looking at the Phoenix before they look to clear out the entirety of the board, is what I was thinking, but instead it is going to be a reset back. Maybe head over towards the Pyromancer, spend up all that gold that you acquired, and try and look for the end afterward. The defense on the Herculean Hoofs is still incredibly strong. Baskin on this Merlin's going to have a very easy time keeping minions outside of the Phoenix range. Winds of Shamash acts as a great no-play zone, and when the game simplifies on Fire Giant defense and Phoenix defense, it means that there's less area that you need to defend. Matt's going to have a very easy time lining up that one. It's really going to come down to which squad finds the initial pick inside this engagement. Every single piece is going to be necessary for both teams if they want to win out cleanly.
Well, let's see where they elect to push themselves next. We already saw that right side tower go down. There's still 2 in the dual lane. I imagine they'll probably make their way over towards that side of the map and at least get that tier 1, maybe tier 2 tower off the map. Do you expect a defense at either of those towers from the Hoofs, or you just wait at your bird and fight there?
Tier 2 at this point of the game, so late, already approaching true 6 item on a lot of these guys, upgraded starters as well. I don't think the gold really matters all that much. The Herculean Hoofs should go ahead and take the safer play of grouping up inside their Phoenix. We might see them throw up soft defenses, just tossing out a couple abilities, buying a couple seconds away from the Sturdy Artisans Fire Giant buff. But outside of that, I don't imagine we see them step up to these tier 2s whatsoever. And that's exactly what they elect to do. They sit inside their Phoenix properly and wait to take the more advantageous fight.
Pagon's got a couple of extra buddies pushing up with them. We see a series of the small minions pushing in, the little lizards treading forward. So you see a wave for them, but they're not too concerned about trying to push in with those. They're waiting for their next minion wave while Relentless One split pushes the mid lane alongside Sino, so they'll be able to take the last tier 2 tower off the map of Herculean Hoofs. Still 2 on the Artisans remaining, but now they're going for a 3-2 split. It'll be Sino to blink in immediately. He goes to the ultimate, but doesn't find anybody with it. Baskin's able to juke out of it just in time, but I can't say the same for Mass as he gets taken out by the bat out of health. Sino now under half health, and with the ultimate from Stewart, putting in some decent damage onto the tank. Snoopy getting low. Meerkat gonna heal him back up. Relentless One low as well. He has to leap away. Gino caught in the middle of 4. He'll be blown up by Sino. And still pushing down the left side, Phoenix is Sturdy Artisans. Now they got the 5v3 advantage. Now they got minions in the mid lane as well. They'll be able to push down that bird and maybe look towards the end of the game if they can find Baskin here. They'll be able to get the quick flicker back out. But Pagon dives under the throne room. Triple consume. Deals a lot of damage with the Titan exposed. That's going to be a quick burn down for the Sturdy Artisans. Sino zones them out. And the Sturdy Artisans, Mifflin, they're taking us to game number 5.
Not often a chalk gets to start a fight by blinking forward and whiffing his ultimate onto literally everyone, doesn't make contact with a single target, and then immediately turns around the engagement, slams Mass with a couple abilities, and removes the jungler from the playfield. From there, the entirety of the Sturdy Artisans surge forward and close out that game. Clean win for them, and a crazy turnaround.
Yeah, a lot of kind of calculated zoning away from there as well. You saw Zino keep a couple members away here. Gino got locked out and picked away from there, but that's enough for us over here on the cast. We're going to take it to a quick break. When we come back, let's go break down game 4 and maybe push us in, see what we're going to be in store for game number 5.
Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock. Coco, arrest me. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock. Coco, arrest me. Catch a freight train rolling for free. This mojo will never come clean. On the fence, you're begging on my knees. I'll never know the truth behind why you arrested me. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock. Coco, arrest me. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock to knock me out. Waiting for the knock. Coco, arrest me. Out of reach, I go a little insane. I know this mojo will never come clean. Can you rest a little while with me now, honey? I'll never have the time, never be the signs, never took a flight, never know the truth. How you arrested me.
Seemed like there was only one way that this one was going to end, and it is a Game 5 between the Sturdy Artisans and the Herculean Hoofs. We're graced with the Chungle here in game number 4, and it works out because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it work out? North American SCC Phase 1 Finals. this one is going the distance. And Taco, doesn't that just seem right? I mean, this is a close matchup. Plenty of history with all of these players here. It just makes sense that we're going to a 5th game.
It's only fair, Dulcin, for Game 5, especially with the Chungle presence to make its debut. I really love the use, though, between the Dharmic Pillars and that Chalk Ultimate, because you have to remember, it's a giant silence as well. So a lot of AoE just kind of negated. We saw Snoopy oftentimes as the 20-minute mark started really rolling around, where he was oftentimes just being held hostage inside of that Dharmic Pillars and forced to withstand all of the follow-up burst damage after the fact. And it's just too much for a Solden's Brew to try and actually survive through, even with some of the sustain options that Meerkat was able to introduce off of this Guan Yu. It was just a really well-executed collapse every single time from the Sturdy Artisans.
And it's a different set, but same situation where Pagon gets Tiamat once again. Pagon looks good on the Tiamat once again. I think, although it's late to kind of make changes, the Herculean Hoofs had done a good job of not playing against the Tiamat so far in this set. I think now we're solidified and maybe taking that one away from Pagon for Game 5.
Potentially, but even still, it does seem as though the Tiamat has definitely looked great. Don't get me wrong, Dulcin, but from the Herculean Hoofs perspective, how much of that are they crediting to the Tiamat as much as they might be Sino and Ionic and Relentless One being the ones primary candidates for creating so much space for Pagan and Stuart to actually work in? Granted, we say it could be any mage, but I'm not sure that just any mage is actually able to do what Tiamat provides almost every single time, because it's not really so much about that early to mid-game presence. It's Tiamat's mid to late that you have to worry about, and especially once you start getting those 4th, 5th, 6th item slots, she's just so difficult to actually try and lock down. So unless the Herculean Hooves really feel all that confident with gambling this Game 5, I do have a hunch that they might look to take away the Tiamat, if not ban it, but it doesn't feel as though the Tiamat has been the sole reason behind this Sturdy Artisan success.
Yeah, fair enough. And the Sturdy Artisans, you pick like the Chalk out of the jungle, I think proves that the creativity is there. So you take away the Tiamat, something else shows up. It's a Chalk or an E-set or something like that out of the jungle. So I think that's something that plays into the mind of the Herculean Hooves here going into picks and bans for game number 5, is that we don't really know, right? I mean, that's got to be some level of mental game where Sino just plays these unique, weird picks, and it's sometimes hard, I think, to lock down exactly what you are and aren't willing to play against, what you are and aren't prepared to play against. E-set, though, continues to be the one unique Sino god that's just not going to see the light of day.
Don't blame the Hoofs for not letting Sino have E-set. It has been such a staple pick for him, because every time he's played it, he's yet to lose a game with it. So clearly teams not wanting to risk just how much objective presence that god is able to provide, especially with Sino's aggressive play style. But Sino, in all honesty, Dulce, I have to say, he kind of rank gamered the Herculean Hooves there with the Chalk jungle, very, very much so. As much as we want to, I'll always try to chalk it up to the analytical aspects. Don't get me wrong, but that was some rank gamering taking place.
No, it definitely did. Definitely did feel that way. Raijin had seen the ban column a few times. Now is going to see the pick column here for the Sturdy Artisans alongside the Camazotz. That has been a very popular option out of the solo lane, particularly so far here today. Chiron Merlin, though, that's kind of been the 1-2 punch of backline, hasn't it, between those two? Sobek then has been the very popular support. Seems like both teams, though, that said, probably happy with the mid lanes they've got. Merlin's been very popular. Raijin, I think, is as well.
The difference here, though, is that the Sturdy Artisans have gone all early game dependent with this top 3 draft so far in comparison to that from the Herculean Hooves. Granted, I do like the Sobek. I like the Chiron. They definitely have some of that early to mid game presence as well. It's the Merlin that I have real question marks about, because Merlin is rather vulnerable to Raijin and a lot of his early game aggression. If there's one thing that the Sturdy Artisans have maintained throughout this entire weekend so far, Dulcin, every single set that they have played has been very heavily controlled within the first 10 minutes, and that's that prime primary laning phase area. So it all just comes down, I think, to whether or not Baskin is going to be able to withstand or weather the storm, so to say, from the Sturdy Artisans.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall task because the Sturdy Artisans like to bring the pressure. They like to bring it often. A little of that going to be brewing out of the duo lane here. Amir and Heimdall. That's a fun 1-2 punch to follow along with. Heimdall needs a little bit of time to kind of scale up in that lane. We've seen early Heimdall pressure, that being said. But I think it's a good pick. You give yourself some late game opportunity there once Heimdall really hits the ground running. If there's enough setup there, we've seen individual plays on the Heimdall even this weekend. Think of a Porsche Coast and the turnaround that he has had. So I think the Sturdy Artisans have a chance to bring some early pressure in the duo lane there as well. Interesting, though, Herculean Hoofs round out their draft with an Osiris and a Serket. Serket support we saw earlier on. I imagine this one, though, out of the jungle.
And Sino just seemingly no fear here, willing to run it back one more time with that Chalk Jungle. Game 5, everything on the line here as well, Dolson. I'm assuming that this is jungle yet again. Could be wrong.
Right.
Could still be for Relentless One in that solo position. Camazot's for Sino, but that's boring. That's not really Sturdy Artisans' play style, and I think that to expect the unconventional is probably more guaranteed here.
Yeah, expect the unconventional. Even after playing against it in game number 4, I didn't expect to see it yet again. It's one of those things where even though it is unexpected,
into the Serket,
right? Into the Serket.
We love that.
Yeah, what a unique play style the Sturdy Artisans team has had. The ultimate question, though, Taco, will it work in your mind in back-to-back games?
There's just so much early game investment. If Artisans are able to establish those early picks for the transition leads, then I think Herculean Hooves could be in some trouble.
Sturdy Artisans versus Herculean Hooves. It's all down to this one. It's time to crown a winner in NA.
Well, thank you, Dolson and Taco. Like you said, this is do or die. Game number 5. Winner takes home the $30,000, the bigger prize pool of it. J-Mac and Mifflin here to bring you the final game of this best of 5. And I don't think this is a 5-game set that we expected today here, Mifflin. And once again, we're seeing the jungle brought out to see if Sturdy Artisans can bring it home for themselves.
Game 5, 30,000 on the line. Don't want to fumble? Sino Chungle. That seems to be the trend here for the Sturdy Artisans, and they come away with a draft that I think plays very similar to how it did in the last one. It's going to be up to Sino and Eonic to create space and allow Pagon and Stewart to be the artillery damage come late game, but their early game does get a slight boost. Eonic on this Ymir, incredibly strong. Gets to play however he wants in the lane. Pagon with a Thunderclap can do whatever he wants in the early game. I mean, jump in, set up for Sino's damage, and get involved as quickly as possible. Whereas the Herculean Hooves, outside of their duo lane, has to wait a little bit longer before they hit their power spikes.
I think this is the first draft that they've brought out so far that this just looks like a 100% gas pedal team on both sides. You want to get that ball rolling early with all of these gods. I'm hoping that we're going to be seeing a lot of action in these first 10 minutes, much like we saw in the last game, but that'll obviously be up to the players to determine here. We'll see if Gino maybe tries to get the ball rolling. He's got Sickening Strike, though, at level 1, so we're not going to see him go for that pluck just yet. Eonic, though, already lost a decent little bit of health here, already down to half health. Still has a couple of potions to save himself back up, though.
This might be the first time this set that Giddy Up wasn't used the second the Chiron ticked over to level 2. Has been Stewart on the Chiron generally up until this point. Thunderclap in from Pagon, catches out the Serket in the jungle, but Sino's got better plans. He wants to look at Baskin, dropping both jungler and mid laner down to half.
Yeah, but Baskin's got double potion ticking up. He'll get back to full with absolutely no problem. Mass does have that Bumpa's dagger, so you can expect a lot, but Pagon just wants to fight. This is we woke up, it's game 5, we're choosing violence today. That's what both of these teams have determined, especially Sturdy Artisan. They haven't lost a set all year, Mifflin, and they're not going to let this game 5 be the first one that they drop. You know, you don't want to go undefeated all year to lose in the grand finals.
Yeah, $30,000 is a huge, just inspiration, I suppose, for these teams.
Yeah.
Anything to strike their fancy and make them play their best games so far. And Sturdy Artisan seems to think they're at their absolute best when it's unbridled aggression, especially around that mid lane. Pagon has jumped in every time anyone's been in range for the jump. Meanwhile, over here in the soul lane, Meerkat has been getting the better end of these engagements, already benefiting from a slight experience lead and poking out his opposition.
Yeah, we did see a little bit of a scorpion steal there, but Mass has made a quick rotation over, quick leap away from Relentless, gets him back under tower, which means he'll be safe and allow Meerkat and Mass to go back and grab that blue buff. Meanwhile, once Relentless has cleared out his wave, him and Sino will pick that one up as well. Just making their presence known across the map so far are the junglers. Not really seeing a whole lot come out of Mask just yet. Most of the aggression has come out of Sino.
Yeah, Sino. I mean, aggression coming from Sino, I mean, that's almost not even worth noting, right? It's just what he does, especially on a god like Chalk. But for now, it seems like Herculean Hoofs coming out ahead on these engagements ever so slightly. Baskin, despite being forced back to base a little bit sooner than his opposition, is still benefiting from a slight experience lead. Warrior Tabi is the selection for both junglers in this one, so it is going to be a more ability-focused game for them. I was expecting Mass to go for a slightly more bruiser build, and he still can transition it that way if he so chooses. We've got a good look at what Sino wants to do, but he can switch his up as well. We've seen him go for the stone cutting sword in that slot in the past, but last time around when picking up the Warrior's Tabi, it was the Jotuns into Transcendence. We'll see if he decides to switch it up here in Game 5.
Well, that wall from Ionic will push Juno just a little bit further back. Mass now making himself known on the left side of the map, maybe looking for Ionic or Stewart if they step a little too far forward. Could be a gank here on the Baskin, though. Torrent's going to be good, needs a couple more basics, but not willing to commit under the ice. Instead, Mass would be the one to get first blood on the left-hand side, and with that, he hits level 5 to set up for the kill onto Ionic as well. They're going to triple ult to make sure they definitely kill this support. Gino getting the credit with the lurking in the waters. First double blood on the board for Herculean Hooves.
Herculean Hoofs up to a roaring start already. 1,000 gold in the lead 4 minutes in. It's been 1,000 gold in the lead 12 minutes in generally this set, and that means nothing. But this early on, that is a very sizable advantage already for the Order side team. And look at this aggressive positioning for Pragon, who uses the leap early.
Oh, no.
He's going to walk into 2.
Oh, no. He walked right into that trap. Baskin had it set, hook, line, and sinker for him. Gino getting the credit for the kill on that one. He'll lose a red buff as well. Ionic's going to walk over, but he's going to be met with 3. Even Stewart can't clear that purple buff yet.
No, Stewart's going to have to let this one go. 3 versus 2 are the sturdy Artisans on the defense, and they do not like their odds. Purple buff going to go the way of the Herculean Hoofs, but 1 buff invade makes not for a lead. It's what you can do with the timer. Expect the Order side team to bring numbers to the next one, while Sino strips away a speed.
He's going to get that just in time. Not sure if walking through the gate, Mask noticed him there, or saw him quite yet on it, and he's going to steal away 1 heartbeat camp as well, leave only the back. So unfortunately for Mask, he's coming up just a couple of seconds late on each of these ones to see just who it was that stole that away from him.
Unfortunate for Mast, man. All your farm belongs to Sino now, and timers on that speed buff. Not as important as your purple and red buff timer. It's so hard to consistently invade speed as it is the safest buff, deepest on your side of the map, so I'm sure the Hooves not overly concerned with this one, just maybe mildly chagrined as Mast.
Uh-oh. Meerkat's got to use the Lord of the Afterlife. Didn't get to even confirm that totem. I don't think he's going to be able to get that one now. So unfortunate for him. He puts in all that work, almost takes that totem down. He got to 99%. And Relentless One just said, no thank you, sir. That one will be mine. Forces him back to the base and ends up picking that totem for himself. Not the end of the world for him, but when you see all that work that you put in just gone in an instant, it's got to feel a little bad.
Early rotation from Relentless One makes me think he might be looking to get involved in this mid-fight, but instead, he wants the back camps. Meerkat forced to clear him out this time around, and again, Mask missing out on some of that important back camp farm that junglers rely on to get their consistent experience. Gino, lurking in the jungle, not quite on the mark with a block.
He's going to go into Lurk in the Waters early on. Centaurus comes out from Snoopy, but only going to hit 2 targets 1 time. Now Sino going to go with a reinitiation onto Baskin, transform over into the ice, out of the ice and into the arcane stance. Baskin will be safe for the time being. I can't say the same for Mask as he's leaped right into the clutches of Pagon with the Taiko drums will take him down. Gino now stuck in the shards of ice. He'll lose a good chunk of health. Stewart throws some damage from the side, but it's because of Storm Rides You combo from Pagon that almost takes him out. And a Thunder Crash basic to finish it off.
Now the Sturdy Artisans starting to get their feet under them. Fantastic peel from Pagon to make sure Sino doesn't fall to his commitment onto Baskin. Mass does his best to make sure that Chalk can't chase that one out. The anti-heal from the ultimate, not quite enough to finish him off though. And Pagon comes up in a big way for his team. That speed buff that was stolen last time around, well, this time the Hoofs able to secure it for themselves, and already this game is off to a roaring start, isn't it? 5 kills in 8 minutes, but the gold is completely even.
Dead even for the time. Baskin will stance switch over back into Arcane to clear out the minions, pushes Pagon under the tower and back to the fountain. Go ahead and buy up some of his. And we did see Sino elect to go towards that Jotun's Wrath yet again. Hasn't full body yet, so there's still potentially could go somewhere else, but I imagine it will be that Jotun's Wrath to resemble what he went in that previous game, game number 4 on this jungle.
It's such a large experience lead already for Sino. He could, even if he wants to, he could go for the Brawler's Beat Stick for a little bit more additional damage at this point. If you've got a lead like this, maybe you're benefiting from more damage. Don't need too many ability rotations if the first wave kills them. But instead, it is going to be the Jotun's Wrath picked up yet again. On a god like Chalk, that ultimate, the Thunder Call, is so important to your team fight that you want to make sure it's up for every single one. That CDR from Jotun's going to help you along that path.
Yeah, and we saw him in that very last fight of Game 4. He actually got off to start the fight, and then he ended the fight with one as well, thanks to that big CDR boost that he had for himself. So with that reduced cooldown that he already has, plus the cooldown reduction, yeah, Jotun's Wrath, you get a lot of value out of this item in game number 4. We'll see if he gets that same value here in game 5.
Now it's time to see which team is going to be the first one to group up around the Gold Fury. Scorpions dropped on both sides, means that Pyro and Gold are going to be the name of the game going into the next couple of minutes. I expect that we see Herculean Hoofs be the aggressor on this one. They've got great power spikes. Snoopy on this Chiron has a slight lead over his opposition and has already finished the Transcendence. Baskin has phenomenal burn potential as well, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Street Form, the Sturdy Artisans jungle team fight is incredibly potent, be it Ionic able to lock down these jungle lanes for 7 entire seconds once he gets that wall maxed out, or Sino's ultimate just being the size of the jungle wherever they are.
Well, it's going to be a blink pluck in by Gino. Grabs Sino, forced out the Storm Call very early, but also a return ultimate out of Mass, and Sino will be put right into the grave as the poison now spreads over to Pagon, but he returns favor by getting a nice shot onto Baskin, taking him down. Now Gino going to go for a pluck, but he's going to get the beads out of Pagon. Pagon not quite the cooldown yet to be able to take down Gino after the return pluck. Now he's staring down Meerkat, who's made a rotation in, as well as Snoopy, forces the Thunder Crash out and back to tower.
Nice wall from Ionic to stop the giddy up in its tracks from Snoopy. Had he been able to close a little bit more gap, didn't have to get all the way to Pagon, just close enough to get in range for that ultimate. So Ionic saves his mid laner's life this time around, and we're getting a small reset back to neutral. Stewart, feeling confident, decides he wants to look towards that purple buff, but 3 Herculean Hooves on that side of the map say, maybe don't do it, and he absolutely does not. Still though, Sturdy Artisans benefiting from a nice little advantage coming to this first objective, and already Relentless One rotating over indicates that this is going to be the first Gold Fury.
And Ionic is just playing zone duty inside the jungle and even body blocking Gino and throwing up the wall on Snoopy. That's going to set up for the Gold Fury. Gino trying to get in to maybe steal that one away, but the freeze comes through. Centaur's shots will not be enough to secure it. And we'll be able to put some good damage out onto the enemy team. Quick retreat after the Gold Fury that Sturdy Artisans able to secure.
Man, this lead for Relentless One has been so hard to deal with. He's getting the better end of these rotations, and if they even do rotate at the same time, Meerkat and Relentless One, that is, well, one of them's got a 3-level advantage. One of them's already got the Void Shield and deals so much more damage at this point of the game. Meerkat electing for the Stone of Gaia is going to give him some additional utility and survivability in these engagements, but I don't think he can match the presence output that this Camazotz has.
Yeah, right now, level 13, about 2.5 levels over Meerkat for the time being. Meerkat hasn't even been able to finish his second item. He's been so under-farmed and under-leveled at this point. Bat out of hell. He's going to immune out the stun, leap over the wall, but Sino was ready for it, at least on the back end. But Matt is met by Mass, who has an ultimate of his own, but he's not going to like to use it. Screech hits, even though the Vampire Bats doesn't. He's going to get beads out of Relentless One. Sino going to take some damage as well, but for the time being, they're both A-OK. Sino can heal himself back up thanks to the rain. Ionic trying to get a nice wall out there, but just a little off the mark for it.
Yeah, Gino just squeaks through the crack, but look at all this space that's been created by Sino and a Relentless One, forcing 2 back to base. Opens up the door for the Pyromancer. Pagon realizing that really the damage output's already there. He doesn't need to be the one focusing the Pyromancer itself, and instead putting some damage into Gino.
Gino, he's going to go into Lurking in the Waters, but Ionic is going to fall to the damage of Baskin, who will also fall to Pagon. The Taiko drums are good. The axe is better. Sino drops down Gino. Mass on the chase for someone, something, anyone he can find. But Relentless One is just a little too mobile. Not able to find him. Mass gonna have to go in onto Sino. Dashes right through the Death Bane. We're not gonna get the final damage needed. Pagon is low, and the axe from Sino will put him right back in the grave for thinking that he can chase up into the enemy team. Now Meerkat has to go on full retreat. There will be no further aggression from the Artisans.
3 for 1 and Pyromancer. That's maybe a moot trade here. It doesn't really reflect too much on the grass. See, it spikes up immediately on that seal, then goes right back down to immediately where it was again. As far as gold goes, experience is going to be favoring the Sturdy Artisans on that exchange. Small knife's edge exchanges is what separates these teams from going home, and $30,000 in their collective pocket. And right now, the Sturdy Artisans are benefiting from a nearly 3,000 gold lead. That's pretty sizable 14 minutes in. With Primal Fury spawning in the near future, that should make it all that much easier to expand this lead even further.
We'll see if they're able to kind of crawl themselves back out. Mast and Meerkat both 2 levels down to the opposition, and even across the board the rest of the way. Mid, support, and Hunters all pretty much dead even, about a half level maybe between the supports. Gino, he's going to be forced to pluck away as Ionic makes his route up. Need to get the wall to force Lurking in the Waters out of Gino, and that'll push him back under the tower. No further aggression from the Artisans. They'll just wait for someone else to step forward next.
And now it's time to see which one of these teams feels confident enough to push the advantage. All ultimates available to the Sturdy Artisans, and there is a pretty tight grouping on the left-hand side of the map, but no target for them to allocate their aggression to. So instead, it is going to be a return back to neutral for both of these squads. And as the game goes on, I think neither team is going to have a distinct enough advantage in the late game that they really want to wait for that point. But it is worth noting that the Sturdy Artisans do have decent scaling from their mid laner. Great scaling on Sino as well, who's elected to go for the Transcendence yet again inside of that jungle slot. Herculean Hoofs, wary of that healing that Sino was able to get for himself last time around, have drafted well enough to get 2 complete anti-heals on their side. Lord of the Afterlife and the ultimate from Sir Ket.
Ooh, Stewart has to use the Bifrost and the beads to get away from Mass as he gets ganked by the jungler. A little bit of damage thrown in by Snoopy as well. The Primal Fury set to spawn in about 15-20 seconds here. It looks like Sturdy Artisans are trying to set up for it, but Herculean Hooves aren't just going to give it over to him for free. Vision control is in the favor of Sturdy Artisans for the time being. But it seems that most of the players have made their rotation here, aside from Relentless One, the only one on that right side of the map still.
No Sentry Ward on the Primal Fury itself means that both teams going to have vision on the actual objective. Relentless One does make his way back to base, and taking a peek at him, seems like he wants to get involved in the fight as Sino blinks forward and finds the ultimate.
Centaurus, he finds 2, make that all 3 shots on, but it's not enough to save Mass for the time being. Aegis comes out to keep Stewart alive, and Sino will push Snoopy further back. Stewart, the only major one taking damage of the team. Sino at half will be able to regenerate, no problem. But now we're starting to see all the players rotate over. And now we see Meerkat here. Relentless One has made his rotation. He's going to get plucked right in and immediately leap away from the damage out of Baskin. Meanwhile, it's never really stopped for Snoopy. He's been staring down 2 players for the last 30 seconds.
Mass still dead for 5 more seconds, and the entirety of the Sturdy Artisans find themselves grouped up on the Primal Fury itself. Phenomenal wall from Ionic forces the flicker off of Baskin, and now Gino, no pluck available, surrounded by 3.
Yeah, but Relentless One is in the backline. He's forced into the bat out of hell. Gino has to go into the waters to run away. Relentless One lands to this 3rd swipe right into the middle of 2, but he's fine for the time being. Lord of the Afterlife from Meerkat doesn't connect. The sickle will. Gino gets a pluck, but it's going to be met with an ultimate in response. Pagon trying to lure him back, and Stewart will get the last basic to drop him down. Now Meerkat's the one getting low. He's forced to leave. Baskin picks up Sino. Yannick low out of the ultimate. The damage from Baskin might just be enough to pick up 2 out of that one. And 2 for Stewart. Double for double onto the flip end, but it's the carry versus the mid who gets it. And meanwhile, Baskin does spill after his double kill.
Meerkat taking a lot of damage here, but he's got backup. Sent to Niflheim. Are the Herculean Hoofs. Meerkat is going to fall down. Stewart picks up Mast and Pagon, picks up Snoopy. Hard to keep track of these team fights flying by the lives, but Sturdy Artisans coming out ahead this time around. Gold Fury, the lone member standing that can oppose the Sturdy Artisans, and that's just gold in their pocket.
And that's a full house for the carries. Unofficial triple for Stewart, double kill for Pagon onto that one, and a full deicide plus the Primal Fury. Sturdy Artisans come up big in that trade.
They really do. That gold deficit is really starting to balloon itself out of control, isn't it? The Herculean Hooves have got to have that weighing on their minds. 5,500 gold, 8,700 experience, and $30,000 on the line. Sturdy Artisans are approaching the point in the game where they can start looking at the Fire Giant itself. 18, 19 minutes in is that magical time in the SPL and the SCC where these teams really can feel confident enough to look towards the biggest neutral objective on the map. Now, I expect to see them start to group up on it, the Sturdy Artisans that is, very soon, but we're still waiting on some key power spikes to come through. Sino still has not finished stacking up that Transcendence, and he still has not finished up his last item either. Relentless One could be moving in towards the Runic Shield or the Anchile, likely going to be the Runic Shield if history is any indicator, and those are going to be very big power spikes for him. Might wait until they finish those out before they're willing to start a fight on the Fire Giant.
Sana's 4th item will be that Erendite, huge power item for him, but then that bonus movement speed you get after the ultimate is going to make this shot go zoom into the back line. Sana will have plenty of chase down now between the movement speed he'll get and the movement speed decrease from the rain onto anybody who just so happens to be in the ring. Ultimate out of Meerkat forced very early in the fight. Sana has to use his onto Mast to silence him out. Meerkat trying to poke him out as best that he can, but Meerkat gets caught by the freeze out of Ionic. Meerkat has to now run under the tower along with Mast. They're both sitting under half. Relentless One nearly full health. He gets the Screech. He's forced to leap away. Walk in is Ionic. He throws up the wall and the Glacial Strike, but not going to find anything just yet. It'll be a reset for the Artisans.
Man, it's so hard for the Herculean Hooves to find a foothold in these team fights because Mast is the same level as Ionic at this point. The support for the Sturdy Artisans matching up toe for toe with Mast, the jungler, on the side of the Herculean Hooves. And what does that lead to? A phenomenal fight inside the jungle.
Nice wall, but Ionic is now the one low. Meerkat sitting under half. He's forced to the Shards of Ice. Ionic will help to take down one as Stewart gets the final hit for it, but he falls to Baskin in the process. Relentless One dives in the back onto Gino. Just needs a couple more basics. The beads from Relentless just to make sure he can keep up inside the waters, and he will be able to take down the support. 2 for 1. Might be looking for more. Stormcall is back online. Beads and Aegis out of Baskin. The axe is tossed down, and Pagon is getting burned alive by Baskin. Snoopy will be able to get it with the final basic, but Stewart is now the one pushing forward with the basics of his own. Relentless One takes down Baskin. Now it's just left to Snoopy and Mast, who are forced back to their Tier 2 and Phoenix, respectively.
Baskin might be the only player in the world to have ever played frontline Merlin. This guy is always in the faces of the opposition. He's just daring the Sturdy Artisans to take the fight. Hey, do you win the DPS battle against me? You better hope so, because that's what I'm going to force every single time. Baskin, unfortunately, does not survive that engagement, but does at least force the kill onto Pagon. So they're both going to be respawning around the same time, creating another neutral dance around the objective. But this gold lead, again, has still been ballooning in favor of the Chaos team.
Slowly but surely, they're crawling their way further and further into the lead. 6,500 gold, 10,500 experience, becoming still fairly relevant, actually. I was going to say, starting to become less relevant as players hit level 20, but only one has hit 20 so far on the map. So that 10,500 experience, you're starting to really feel the brunt of that, especially amongst the jungle and the solo, both 3.5 to 4 levels down to their opposition.
Yeah, this has been a fatty solo diff so far. Relentless One getting the better end of all these rotations. Meerkat has been struggling to keep up in farm. Relentless One going to be the second one to tick over to level 20 in this game, and that's a 4-level deficit between him and the Osiris, just now getting over to level 16 himself. Damage output going to favor the Camazotz through and through, and you can see it reflected on the damage charts. He's a little bit higher up than his opposition, but for now, it's the sturdy Artisans. The ball is in their court. Do they want to try and force another engagement on the Fire Giant, or are they going to go ahead and try and siege out these towers? They were able to strip away the tier 1 and mid off the last engagement we saw, but I think they've got their eyes on bigger aspirations. Fire Giant itself is the most important thing on the map right now.
And for the time being, Sturdy Artisans will group up and start the objective. Relentless One playing frontline against Meerkat. 4 levels up as the solo, and they'll dive into the back as Sino gets a 4-man storm call, but he's going to be thrown right into the depths of it all, and he'll die almost instantly, just as quickly as he made his way back. Relentless One is outfoxing at Snoopy, and he's not winning that trade out. Ionic has to go into the ultimate just for some CC immunity, but Mass will now blink in. He's going to get the Cobra's Kiss and force one back. Pagon up into the Tycho drums, pushing Baskin and Meerkat away. But 2 were already down for the Artisans. Stewart so far back. Pagon now no ultimate as well. A Relentless One all the way in the mid lane trying to sustain back up.
That Chalk ult was so greedy, man. Nobody in range to follow up. Relentless One could not get involved in that engagement. Stewart could not either, and it's reflected in the HP and mana, both full up for him. And now the Herculean Hoofs almost miraculously able to turn this one around, but not healthy enough to go for the Fire Giant. Instead, maybe looking to desync Relentless One's life. And he do it this time around. 60 seconds left on the Camazotz respawns means that the Hoofs could go ahead, reset back to base, and then regroup on the Giant itself, and have plenty of time to work with.
Yeah, he used that leap to get away from the pluck from Gino, and so he had nothing left as soon as 3 players collapsed down onto him. So a little bit of a misplay there by Relentless, sticking around just a little too long around that Fire Giant pit, and all the members of the Hoofs did not go back to base because, I mean, let's be real, they were really healthy after that fight. I mean, that blink ult from Sino, had there been follow-up, would have been fantastic. It's not often you get a blink 4-man Chalk ultimate, but when there's nothing to follow up onto it, and you don't have any defense built, that's just death.
It is, and now the Herculean Hoofs just reaping the rewards of their efforts. Start up the Fire Giant, burning quickly, but not as quickly as Ionic.
Yeah, Ionic thrown into the ring of fire, and that'll be the end of his life. But Snoopy falls to Sino on the backside of it all. Mass Ultimate has already been expended to try and take down Ionic, and Sino's going to be able to juke them out with the Torrent, and that allows for Stewart to set up the kill onto Meerkat. Now Gino blinking into the fray of it. Pagon gonna get some damage to the Percussive Storm, but Baskin is still alive and healthy. Pagon gets thrown right into his clasp, and that'll be the death. The trade out. At least one mid laner goes down. Pagon will fall. He takes Mass in response to it. Relentless is trying to find Mass on the back end of it. A nice little heal. Mass is forced to Aegis inside of his own Blizzard. But Stewart finds the final basic, and Sino just trying to find Gino. Torrent not gonna find it, but the Axe Toss will. And now a returning Deicide for the Artisans. Now they're the ones who start up the Fire Giant.
It was a tough task for the Herculean Hoofs to win 2 team fights in a row from such a large XP and gold deficit, and this time around they were not up to it. Sturdy Artisans going to be able to pick up Fire Giant onto 4 of their members. No way they wait out the 20 seconds on Pagon, surely.
Oh no, he thought Relentless One was finishing that. Relentless thought Stewart was finishing. They both walk out, reset, but luckily they're able to at least grab the Fire Giant. Now not able to get the Pyromancer though, as they took a little too long because of that reset.
This Chalk jungle is starting to fall off at this point in the game, but it simplifies how this Chalk has to play. Sino only has one job from here on out, and it's to close gap on a Baskin and use his ultimate on Baskin. That silence either going to force out a Beads and Aegis, or at least remove his ability to use abilities for the next couple of seconds, which should create the space for the Sturdy Artisans to siege out these towers and these Phoenixes. 4 towers still standing, and that means that there are 3 Phoenixes still standing as well. Oni Fury should be able to separate the map and make it that much easier for him to clear out the last remaining structures of the Herculean Hoofs. And with Fire Giant on 4, I think it should be pretty easy.
how impactful is this level differential that is still evident in the game? 2 between the junglers, 2 between the solo. I mean, how big are those 4 levels between these players?
The jungler level deficit, not that big a deal, only 1 right there. What is a big deal is the last item, Transcendence. Transcendence in its own is a pretty good item. You do want the stacks, though. That is it at its best, and picking up this late into the game means that it's not very likely that Mash is going to get this one stacked up fully before the match ends. A very interesting selection. He may have been benefited more by something that is more readily available. You get the full value from the majority of items that you don't have to stack up. I'm surprised he decides to go for the Transcendence here.
I mean, Heartseeker, if you had the gold for it, hi-rez, if you wanted to stay within that same tree. I'm kind of questioning this Transcendence with you. 7 stacks on it, yeah, that's all good and cool, but when are you going to get the time to get those stacks? Right now, I'm imagining, Master, that train of thought is, I picked up Transcendence. That means I'm just going to farm for the next 10 minutes by delaying the game another 10 minutes. That's the only mentality I can think of, is he's so confident in his team that they can delay the sturdy Artisans for 10 more minutes. The problem is they're staring at a 10,000 gold difference and basically a full item on multiple players in a difference in this fight. That's going to make a huge difference between them.
3-2 split is what the sturdy Artisans have set up here, and they're looking at the objectives itself, and they're burning quickly 50% on the mid Phoenix.
Yeah, Sino's forced away, has to use his beads as well. Phoenix is still being fought. It's a 3v2 now, but it seems to be in favor of sturdy Artisans, because now they push it to a 2v2, and making that another 3 as Baskin rotates over to deal with Pagon. Sino has made his way back into the fray. Drums of War thrown out, pulling Snoopy back in, gets the beads. Wall holds him out just a little while longer, but both Phoenixes are down, and that's the frenzy popped out of Ionic. They're looking for the end of it, and sturdy Artisans, they haven't lost all season long, and they're not starting here today. In matches that they have had the opportunity to play, they remain a Phase 1 undefeated team.
Congratulations to the sturdy Artisans, the SCC playoff champions, $30,000 in their collective pocket, and a well-earned one at that. That was an entire 5-game set. They come into that one from the loser's bracket and win it out cleanly. Congratulations again.
Yeah, it's a big win for them. It took them 5 games to get there, even being down the 1-game disadvantage for having to crawl through that loser's bracket after that day 1 forfeit, but they do manage to pull it through, and they are your Phase 1 SCC NA champions, and they hold their, at least set-wise, undefeated streak. Obviously, dropping a couple of games this weekend and throughout the year, but impressive play nonetheless from the sturdy Artisans. I mean, looking onto it, they've got a lot of potential going into Phase 2. We're going to take a quick little break here, bring it back afterwards. The desk will break down what that set was, but that's it for you, me here, Mifflin. We'll see you guys back over at the desk.
Seemed like the inevitable outcome here in this one. The Sturdy Artisans face the losers bracket, and they come out on top in 5 games. It was a valiant effort through and through here in the grand finals of the North American SCC by the Herculean Hoofs. Did not make it easy on the Sturdy Artisans, but this Sturdy Artisans team basically ran the table in this phase of the North American SCC. Only dropped 1 set to the Tiburones de Tijuana in the final set of the regular phase. And then they make a clean sweep here this weekend in the North American SCC playoffs. Taco's with me this time, literally for the last time here today before we round out our broadcast for the weekend. Taco, it's the runback. The Chungle gets its second appearance, and the Chungle gets its second win.
The game started to get a little bit questionable once we started nearing that 30-minute mark, but the Sturdy Artisans, Dilson, they made sure to close it out. They knew they were working with a timer. Chungle, most particularly, working with a timer because Chalk definitely not the greatest for those late-game team fights, but Sino was making all the difference throughout that early game portion. Just gave Pagan so many different opportunities to collect cleanups in the process.
And it was little moments like that in the early game where Pagan really just started to roll on this Raijin. By the end of the game, effectively left unhinged. And small moments like this where Stewart got the Heimdall. And this is what I was kind of concerned about in the draft, where you get an incredible mid lane pick over in the Raijin. And I think Heimdall is one of those types of picks where you're kind of in a flow. You're in like a flow state, just kind of weaving in the auto attacks. And when everything is just starting to connect, it's so hard to deal with. And Stewart and Pagan in particular, very difficult to deal with in this game. I think absolutely worth mentioning, probably would be disrespectful not to mention Relentless One in this game. I think the solo lane still felt very comfortable in this game for the Sturdy Artisans, and the Camazotz, made a big difference in a sub 30-minute game.
Absolutely nothing worse, though, than just getting full kit collapsed on by that Chungle.
No, that feels bad.
It's you don't expect the power that Chalk actually provides, especially when you get to opt into one of those more heavily oriented damage builds. I mean, Sino getting to rock the Transcendence even on this Chalk jungle, and the damage numbers do not lie here, Dolson.
They do not.
Comes in just shy of 22,000. Pagan still running laps around his team, and Baskin just said, yeah, you guys are trying to put damage out, but, I'm Merlin, and it's still 34K, not enough to defeat the likes of the Sturdy Artisans.
How many times have we seen that today? Even if we're zooming out of this specific matchup, this is not a condemnation against Merlin, but how many times today have we seen Merlin do like 40,000 damage on the losing end of a game? It's nuts. And again, I think very specific to the types of game situations and things like that. Merlin is just going to put out a lot of damage, but was on the losing end a few times here today. We talked a lot about Chalk out of the jungle, and the pilot himself, none other than Sino, joins me now for the post-game interview. Sino, great to have you back here, my friend. Good to talk to you a little bit. Why don't we jump right in? Chalk jungle, is it good, or have you now brought it into the meta? Should we expect all the pros to be playing this one out of the jungle?
I don't think the pros have. I think they're too scared to play it, but I don't know. I think it's pretty good. It's fun. So. What
opened up the door to it? Why did you think Chalk was the right pick here in the last couple of games?
Well, they kept betting ESET in Asia, so that was kind of my only god left. So I figured I might as well play it.
Yeah, why not? Why not give it a go there? Well, look, it was a pretty contested matchup. You guys had a quick run, I guess, through the first phase of the North American SCC. Just dropped that 1 set to the Tiburones there towards the end. Obviously, unfortunate circumstances to start off the weekend. Dropped down to the losers bracket. Did that ever concern you guys, or losers bracket, winners bracket didn't make a difference? You figured you'd be in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate that it had happened, but we were pretty confident that we were the best team. We felt like it was kind of inevitable that we were going to win this tournament. So,
absolutely, this team was rolling through and through. Looking towards future phases, you imagine that this Sturdy Artisans team sticks together, still more tournaments and some more money to win?
Yeah, I don't know about Stu, but the rest of us will for sure stick together. So.
Well, I hope so. You guys are an absolute blast to watch. I'll leave you with one final question. Hawks or Bucks, and how many games?
Bucks and 6.
Bucks and 6. Aggro, thank God he's not. Thank God he's not on the broadcast. If you decided to hear it, Sino, thanks for stopping by. Congrats on the big win, and make sure to take some time to celebrate.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Always great to hear from Sino. Not great that his final thoughts are against the Hawks, but look, the Bucks are really good. You can't fault a man for feeling that way. But Sino, always good to hear from him. A couple great chalk games there in the end. And I admire the confidence. Look, he says that largely jokingly, Taco, about, the pros, they don't have the confidence to play this pick. But I just love that type of attitude. You're going into a game 5, everything on the line. Let's just throw out a chalk jungle. Why not? I think that type of attitude, and I mean attitude in a good way, definitely lends a hand to Sino and the rest of the Sturdy Artisans team and the confidence to take these types of games.
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry about playing against the other pros, so he'll never get a chance to see whether or not they're going to be willing to whip out that chalk jungle against him. But I'm sure if he wanted to make his return, he definitely could.
I'm sure he could. He has the skill set and still has the skill set to do it. Let's look back. God, that was a good one, Taco. Let's look back at the North American bracket here this weekend. It was literally all 2-0s. Remember, an asterisk over the top left matchup there. Sturdy Artisans had to DQ that one, but then made their run through the losers bracket nonetheless. Did not make it easy on themselves here. Could only drop one game against the Herculean Hoofs in the grand finals, and that is exactly what happened. Sturdy Artisans only dropped the one game up against the Herculean Hoofs. And I think, Taco, kind of final thoughts on this. I didn't want to get too much into roster talk, that sort of thing, but if this team sticks together, I imagine it's going to be an absolute force. Even if you swap out one guy, not that Stewart is the name that Sino threw out there, is any small piece
usually
to lose.
Related to school reasons.
Right, of course.
It's a big part of the reason why I think we have seen some of the talent fall into the SCC, because a lot of these guys definitely have SPL capability behind them, but at the same time, a pro league is definitely an entirely different beast of its own.
Of course.
A lot of these guys are aware of that, and while the jokes will happen behind the scenes and in the public eye from time to time, these guys are all definitely very respectable of each other, and for good reason. They're strong players.
Of course, and look, I hope as much of this roster sticks together as possible, because they're an absolute treat to watch. The Sturdy Artisans, your North American champions here in the NASCC Phase 1 playoffs. That's it, though, for a fun weekend of SCC action, so I'll send it off one final time. My name is Dolson. That's been Taco on behalf of us and all the other casters, everyone in production. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.